Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Why Are We Like This, a Heartstopper podcast. I'm Ashley, she, her.
And I'm Adam, he, him, and today we are back to talk about Heartstopper Season 3, Episode 3, Talk. And believe me, Ash, we need to talk.
Yeah, we're about to talk for sure.
We're gonna damn talk, Jesus.
Yeah. Oh boy. This one is, I enjoy it a lot until the end. And then I just like get sobby.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one because following, I guess predominantly Nick and Charlie, although there's a lot of Ellen Tao in this episode as well, but it starts on such this interesting trajectory where you think, oh, Nick's doing really well supporting Charlie and he's remembering what his aunt taught him, and in some ways it's building up to be a very positive experience, even though I know Charlie's obviously not to exclude what he's going through. But you think, oh, this is great. He's learning. We're starting getting Charlie to open up to talk to Nick more, and this is all going really well. And then that ending just kind of pulls you back to reality of how heavy the situation actually is. Even the way that the episode is shot, right? When you see they're reuniting after summer, it's almost like a dream sequence with the way the lighting is, in the doorway and everything. You think, oh wow, this is beautiful. They're seeing each other again, and there's all this young love coming together again in this episode, and then that ending kind of just pulls the rug out from under your feet. Oh yeah, remember, shit's gonna get real, and here we are.
Yeah, you're so right about the beginning, and it's if you don't watch this episode immediately after episode 2 and you come back to it, I just watched it standalone today, and you almost forget how bad it really is in that first bit until we get the flashback of Diane, and then you're like, oh yeah, because it's so uplifting in that opening.
Oh yeah, it does that thing which this show does quite well of setting up expectations to kind of bring you back to reality. It's interesting, just the imagery there of pulling you out of that dream as the viewer, but also pulling them out of their dream, into that reality of we have to face this now, because we can't just dance around this thing and act like it's not happening. Keeping our heads in the dream, we have to face this reality now. So it's really interesting when we get to the end and. Oh, well, I guess we'll get there.
Yeah. All right, so let's just dive in. We start out in Nick's room, and we get this lovely parallel of Charlie in the season 2 open, where he's getting ready, and he checks his text. It's a good morning text from Charlie that says that he can't wait to see him, and 3 weeks has felt like a year. Then he hops up and he fumbles over getting dressed, and then he fixes his tie and goes to the mirror. So it's all these parallels of how Charlie was getting ready. And I just, the 3 weeks has felt like a year text, maybe not to Nick, but to anyone else, without knowing the severity of Charlie's situation, would be it's an exaggeration. But when you stop to think about everything that Charlie has gone through in these last 3 weeks, it probably has felt like a year, because he went from, Nick bringing it up in the sea and him denying it to questioning it a little bit and researching into finally accepting it. And then all of that stuff on top of the building tension with Jane that was kind of getting worse and worse there, that it's just that's so much to go through, period. And then to cram it all into 3 weeks. Yeah, I would say it probably did feel like a year.
It's interesting because that, thing means different things to different characters in this episode. So obviously, they're so young and in love that that other person is their life right now, right? And we see that a lot with Tao. They're really kind of hammering home how much Elle means to Tao. And, in a sense, she is his life. And the way that Nick and Charlie feel about each other, they are each other's life right now. And it is that young, love bombing, going fully into this relationship because it feels right, and it is, we have experiences like that when we're younger, when we think, oh my God, this is it, this is endgame, this is everything I love, I'm going fully in with this.
Yeah.
Especially as you said with Charlie there. So there's an element of where that can feel longer because I haven't seen this person I love for so long. It's young love. I've never felt this like this before, and it can feel like an eternity because that's the focus of your life right now.
Right.
But with Charlie, and obviously we'll talk more about this when we get towards the infamous bedroom scene, he's been almost in a sense going back to holding on to a secret that he feels like he can't talk to anyone about, you know?
Yeah.
And then this is like his thing. So even though Nick knows about it and is trying to be supportive and has brought it up before, Charlie's still like, no, that's my thing. No, we're not doing this. No.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, there's so many parallels there with the queer narrative of, if I tell you, you will look at me differently. If I bring this up, it'll change everything. I want everything to be perfect. Everything has to stay exactly the way it is, and it's the parallels there are really interesting. So although we are talking about an eating disorder, which of course is completely different, but for Charlie and that character, he has been through something similar before. And it's interesting that he's reverting back to that because it is something so important in his life right now, something really serious that he doesn't know how to handle.
I also think that isolation is a really common coping mechanism for a lot of people.
Yes.
And so that is definitely like his coping mechanism for sure, is to like run and hide and be on his own and process it.
It tracks with him. It tracks with, like, I think all of us maybe will experience that at some point in our lives where we're like,
yeah.
And Charlie, is a very intelligent guy. So like for him, it's like, no, if I can't make sense of this thing, then nobody else is like, I need to get my head around this first. And he knows that he can't because it goes beyond like, intellectually understanding this. It's more like how it pulls on him emotionally, and that you can't get a handle on, like that when it really digs deep into your emotions and really starts to tear you down, which obviously it is with Charlie by this point. He can't control it, like this is kind of beyond that now. And this is why we get to him needing, the professional help that he gets.
Totally. On a lighter note, when Nick is fumbling over getting dressed, I paused it to look at his wall because there was a calendar there and there was 2 stars on it. And one of them was on his birthday. And the other one was on Tal's birthday. And I thought that was so cute because I love their friendship so much.
Yeah, that is nice. Gosh, what a difference from like season 1 to this. Like having a star on Tao's birthday. That's like, it's show don't tell. That's the best thing. And that right there, that little moment, that little detail says so much about them two and how much they've grown. That's a really, really nice detail. Actually, I'm so pleased that you highlighted that.
Yeah, I was like, it made me cry. I was like,
I am not surprised.
No. So he goes over to the mirror and he's like impressed with himself in the mirror. He's like, I look good. He like is very confident and like ready to go. He tells Nellie that he loves her and he tells her bye, which is adorable.
And he does look good, can I just say?
Yeah.
Like, he looks great. Like, feel yourself. Look at yourself in that mirror. Like, honestly, work it. Work that school uniform that I that I had to wear for 5 years of my life. Do it.
I mean, this is the first day back, right? So this would be his first day of sixth form?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this is a new tie. So I guess he is like feeling probably on top of like confident, just like feeling cool, like when you get to the older grades, you're like, I'm one of the big dogs now.
Yeah, literally. Nobody's going to tell me what to do.
Exactly. He gets a text from Charlie that says, are you at school yet? Hurry up. I need to kiss you, which is adorable. And then we get the rugby lads greeting Nick at the gates, which is really cute. They're like, where have you been? They do like the classic standard bro handshake.
I know. Geez, lads.
Yes. And then we cut to Tara, and she's looking at the sign for the sixth form common room. And that threw me back to Nick looking at the exam announcement or whatever that he was looking at in season 2, and how their journeys are like super parallel. They always have been, but like the school journey is like, hers is manifesting more in like burnout. And I think that his was more anxiety around the exams, but there's just a ton of parallels between these two.
I mean, she plays it so well, the actress for Tara, but like the anxiety on her face of just looking at that sign, like says everything. And it's just like, you can see it. She's just like,
yeah,
it's just that like one big sigh, like, oh my God. And obviously, it's linking on to the last episode when they were talking about, oh, you should come to like the other classes because you did so well in your exams. And she's like, Jesus Christ, can I just have a moment? Like,
yeah.
Can I just take a breath, right now? But yeah, I love the line about her becoming a prefect. Like, I love that.
Yeah, so I have a question about that.
Yes, please ask me.
So she walks in and Mrs. Greenwood is there, and I just want to point out first that she gives her a huge fake smile when she says, "Yeah, I'll do that." And so with prefect, you have to apply, the student has to apply.
It might be different depending on school, but for my experience, because get ready, here we go. Not only was I a prefect, I was head boy.
Yes.
Now, you can imagine a young closeted Adam, that title meant hilarious moments for me, both in bullying and like to look back, hilarious, which, you know, is kind of like head prefect in a way. The way you become a prefect, the way my experience anyway, is the teachers selected it.
Okay.
So it was based on stuff like, you know, your attendance and like some of your grades. And although it wasn't all grades focused, because that's not really fair, but it was like your attendance and like, were you in trouble? You know, like, did you apply yourself in different areas of school? Like, were you in school activities and things like that? So like all of that came into account. But then the head boy, head girl thing, that was actually voted on by the other students. So you kind of put yourself forward, and then, I mean, I didn't put myself forward. It was like a group of the very popular girls in school that I was friends with, because duh, they put me forward for it. And then everyone kind of votes like as a democracy. And then, and then I ended up as it. But yeah, I still have my prefect badge. I still have my head boy badge. Yeah. So as soon as I heard her say prefect, I was like, yep, that's my experience right there.
I love it though. I love that. So I was curious because I was like, because she says, specifically, you should think about applying to be a prefect.
Yeah.
And I thought the way that her smile fades away when Mrs. Greenwood leaves, like she clearly doesn't want to do it. So if you have to apply and then she still applied, like that just shows you how much pressure she feels to like continually overperform.
And to be like a model student in a way.
Yeah.
Because that's what prefects do. I mean, it's a little bit swatty if I'm honest, but like, so for example, like when there's teacher-student nights, or like if new students are potentially coming to the school and parents want to be like shown around the school and have their kids shown around, then prefects would do that. It's that kind of thing. So like, or if something, I don't know, has been ran by the school and they need like extra help, like certain students to help them out in some way, the prefects would be the ones that were chosen to do it. But it is very much like, I'm just going to reference this very briefly. In the Harry Potter movies, when you see the first one, when they enter the school and they're shown around by the prefects. It's exactly the same thing. So like new students, like, you know, put together in groups, and it's like, right, okay, here's the science labs and here's the maths lessons, here's the gym, you know, so they're shown around the school by the prefects. That's kind of a lot of what they do.
So it's like student council.
That's not a thing that I've ever had. So if it sounds
it's
similar
probably
to you,
like the similar thing, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And they like are in charge of like planning all of the school dances and like all of that stuff too.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Okay, cool. So then we hear Darcy, and they are in pants. And Tara says, since when did our dress code include trousers? And Darcy says, well, sixth form boys get to wear trousers, so why can't I? Snap, snap, snap.
Yep.
Tara's so proud. And we see that she gives like a huge, genuine smile, which is such a contrast to the big fake one she just gave the teacher. So,
isn't it a big difference when, you know, the way you react to things that you are told you should be interested and excited about versus the things you actually are?
Yeah.
You know, like earlier on in the last episode, when it's like, oh, like, you know, we'll put you into this class to get you ready for like Oxford, and oh, you know, think about being a prefect, and it's all these things that she's constantly being told, oh, you should be thinking about this, you should be excited about this, blah, 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 blah. You should fit into this box, essentially. And then she's dating Darcy, who they are removing themselves from boxes, you know, and that's what I really love about that, the contrast. And they're seeing them just live their freedom and live like their own expression, their own gender expression, their own sexuality expression, all of that. So obviously Tara's seeing that and just thinking, you know what? Damn, I'm so proud of you. Because, you know, no one's telling you who to be. You're just being yourself. And you have suffered with everything with your mother in the last season trying to tell you who you should be. Oh, it's just a phase and all of this crap. So yeah, the fact that Tara gives them that look of being so, you know, positive, I love that.
Absolutely. That's such a good point, that like Tara is continually putting herself in those boxes because of the pressure, while Darcy is like, hell no.
That ain't happening to me.
Yeah. And it's like so interesting because Tara has been such a great support to
Mm-hmm.
them. And so, like, she obviously understands the impact of saying no and like living your truth and living how you want. But she's not quite to the point where she can do it for herself yet.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because she had that conversation with Darcy when she had to say no. You know, she had to say to them, look, like it's becoming a thing, us living together. Like, I think we need our space. It's because that relationship, I think, is the most important thing to Tara, you know? So
Yeah.
it's easier to say no because Tara understands like the benefits of them having their space and how it will, if anything, just kind of improve the relationship, you know, for that period of time for what's needed.
Yeah.
Whereas Power trying to say no for herself is still a really difficult thing. And that's really interesting. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I am guilty of it.
Same. Girl, same.
Tara says, "You look so you." And that line just, it hits me every time. It's so good. And Darcy just like beams and they hug and they sit down. We see Sahar and Imogen and they all like greet each other. I'm also really glad that the school's allowing Darcy to wear pants because a lot of schools would say it was against the rules and it would be like a huge issue.
It's interesting because when I was at school, predominantly it was boys in trousers, girls in skirts.
Right.
And then like it was weird. Like there was a bit of a change when during the winter months it would be like, well, it's not really fair. Like the girls should wear trousers as well because hello, it's bloody freezing.
Yeah.
But then as time went on, it was just kind of like girls were like, screw this, I'm just going to wear them whenever I want. And like then it became a mixture of like, you know, girls would wear skirts some days, trousers the other, and it's only fair. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we policing this?
I've never really understood the uniform thing, but I've also never had to wear a uniform, so.
Lucky you.
So then we cut to Tao, and he's walking and texting, and there's like some good night messages, and he's wishing Elle good luck. And then we cut over and see Elle getting the text, and she responds with some hearts, and then we get Naomi and Felix. I'm so glad that they're back. I love them so much. And Elle runs up to them and they kind of greet each other and kind of just like catch up on their summer. It's a super cute little scene.
It was. I really like I smiled when I saw them again because I was like, oh yeah, like that was such a big thing in season 2. Like Elle going off like and finding new friends like linked to what Elle loves to do, you know? So like to see them again, I was like, oh my God, like we're back. You know, it's nice that Elle has this separate thing from Tao that she absolutely loves and kind of just express and be herself with. So like it was a nice reminder of like welcome back to this part of Elle, which I really liked.
Yeah, because we've seen basically only Tao and Elle for the last 2 episodes.
Yep.
Okay, then we get one of my favorite scenes ever. We get our scene in the car with the teachers and they pull up and Mr. Farouk's like, you better get out first. And Mr. Jai's like, what? And Farouk's like, the kids won't shut up about it if they find out we're dating. And Mr. Ajayi takes that opportunity to take the piss out of him and be like, oh, so we're dating? And Farouk's like, well, we've been seeing each other all summer, so I hope so. And then they kiss and they go to get out. They go to get out of the car and Coach Singh, the woman that you are, she is sitting there. I guarantee you that she's been there just watching the whole time.
Oh my God, absolutely.
She's as obsessed with them as I am, maybe more. And she's like, you'll have to be sneakier. The kids will be saying you're engaged by break.
Brilliant. And so well delivered as well, like nonchalant.
Yes.
Like just, you know, like, come on guys, like bloody hell, like you're gonna have to be better than that. Like it's so well delivered by her.
Yeah, and her little smirk she gives them too.
Yeah.
And Mr. Ajayi thinks it's funny, and Mr. Farouk is like,
Sure.
this woman.
Yep.
I love it so much. I really would love to get more of these 3, but I understand why, because it's not, you know, they're like very, very, very side characters. But like, if there was going to be a spinoff, I would love it to be about these 3.
Honestly, like give us a spinoff of just the teachers of like, you know, the school. Like I'd watch the hell out of that.
I love them. So then we cut to Nick and he's walking down the hall He's walking with a fucking purpose too. He is like on a mission.
Damn. Like, yeah, there's nothing, nobody else is in that hallway but Charlie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. And he turns the corner and we see them like lock eyes and smile and they run over and hug each other and we get our classic leaves. Then we get our highs. And then instead of kissing, Charlie immediately hugs him again. And Nick is like, no kiss. And Charlie says, hug first. And then they hug each other tighter and like bury their faces in each other's necks. And this is another scene that is like, they just like plucked it off the pages of the comic and threw it on the screen.
Literally, the
so
shot
good.
of the feet, like lifting
Yes.
up, like all of that detail. Yep. Loved it.
So good. And the look on Charlie's face when he like gets to snuggle in deeper, it made me like stop and think about everything that he's been processing again these last 3 weeks. And like I'm relieved for Nick too, because he's obviously been like very worried and stressed about everything, but he's also been on vacation.
Very true.
And so like we did see him having fun moments here and there, but Charlie's literally just been like spiraling and processing and spiraling and processing. And Nick's the only one that he's talked to about any of this. And so he's just been, like we said, isolating and hiding away. I don't know. It's just like, I feel so good for him in this moment to like finally have Nick back in his arms, and like take a breath. Knowing that he's like not alone in this anymore.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, like what that moment means to each character, because, like, in a way, Nick's had his therapy session with his aunt, right, to like process how he feels about the full thing, like when they were away, like we spoke last episode, like the big talk on the beach, and we obviously get reference back to that as well later on in this episode. So then him seeing like Charlie is the person that he loves so much, is the person he's going to look after. He's like, right, I've got a mission, I've got a game plan, I've got this advice in my head, I've got this breakdown of these steps. I can really help him now in a way that I never thought I could before, Whereas, as you said, with Charlie, he's just been waiting,
Yeah.
and just probably wandering, like in his own mind with this just feeling so unsettled with everything, like racing through his mind. It's not even just the eating disorder. It's like the relationship he has with his parents and like big things at school are happening, and just Nick's in sixth form now. Next year, Nick's going to go away. So like there's all these things as well that's just mixing in the pot in Charlie's mind, which is weighing on him. But I do love that the second he sees Nick in that corridor, all of that melts, and it's beautiful. And again, like, you look at the lighting in this scene, it's dreamlike. It is like Nick is almost floating down the corridor towards Charlie in that scene. It's really, really well played by them both. And as you say, like, it's so lovely to see it literally plucked out of the pages and slapped onto the screen.
It's so good.
So well done.
I don't know how they do it. So then we hear some a-holes in the background being like, I heard they're going out, and they're like laughing. Charlie pulls back, but Nick smiles at him and takes his hand and is like, come on. And so they go into another little storage closet room. It's huge for a storage closet.
Like, this is a classroom they basically step into. It's not a cupboard.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I was like, Nick is like very thirsty in this scene, because he like puts himself against the wall and like pulls Charlie in, and he's like staring at Charlie's lips the whole time. And then he like grabs Charlie by the face and starts kissing him. Then Charlie pulls back and says, I missed you. And Nick like immediately, without saying anything, he just like kind of giggles and then starts kissing him again. And Charlie pulls back again and says, so much. And Nick is finally like, yeah, I missed you too. And they like look at each other for a second, and Nick is like, eyes, lips, eyes, lips. And then they start making out again. So what I was thinking about in this scene was how we don't get the line from the comic about the tie being like, oh, you're wearing the sixth form tie. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, that's hot.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That could have been super cute.
Yeah, it would have made sense within the context of this scene, because they're like, they're wanting each other right now, and like this is building up to them eventually having sex. So like it makes more sense that they're more like I guess, primal with each other in this point. Plus, they haven't seen
Yeah.
each other like for
Right.
summer, so like, hello.
Yes.
But yeah, like yeah, it is a shame that we missed out that line about the tie. Plus, it's a pretty cute tie. But like even just seeing him like interacting with that and then saying how odd it is, like it makes sense within the context of what we're building towards for their relationship.
Yeah.
But still, like I love that they, as you say, like how thirsty Nick was, like pulling him in and like how much full on the kisses were here, and then just
Yeah.
that break away from each other just to look for a second and like the smiles on each other's faces, like this is their euphoria, like this is like
Yeah.
their moment of like we are exactly where we need to be right now, let's get back to it. It's
Yeah.
just, I love that little, like it's like the eye in the storm right now, let's get back on it. It's just
Yes.
it works really well. The way they look at each other in that moment is really special.
Yeah. And I love the like when he pulls him into the room, they like round the corner and come in the door and you can see like a group of boys standing
Yeah.
over there like watching him, like they know exactly what they're about to go in there and do. And also he like pushed himself up against the window, which like
Exactly.
it has blinds, but the bottom part was open and I'm like, no, everybody can see you.
Literally. But then boys are like, yeah, we've had 7 minutes of heaven in that place. We know it's exactly what's happening in there. Like,
Yeah.
that's where you go to do it, everyone.
This entire opening, too, leading up to this point, made me think of the season 1 open, where Charlie's like coming to school and then he gets his texts from Ben and he's like in the library. And then finally they get together and he's like, I missed your face so much, and like, how was your break? But he clearly like was not interested at all. And it's like such the exact same situation, but totally different in this scene.
It's like shows you a toxic relationship versus a
Yes.
loving relationship, and
Yes.
how both look, for all that they're doing the same thing, but yet how different they look.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get our title card.
Hey.
And it is super cute. It's a little talk bubble that says talk, and it gets bonus points because it's green, which is my favorite color. That was just specifically for me.
Yep, Alice made it for you.
And then we go to Farouk's forum class. And so it's still Hamlet 5. Is it normal for them to like rotate teachers every year?
So it can be. When I got to sixth form myself, that was very much a thing. But when I was in like your equivalent of high school, we just had the one teacher. So like I had one teacher for 5 years, and then the last kind of 2 years it just changed, and it changed like maybe every 6 months. Weirdly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but when I was like in my younger years, it was one teacher I had for registration.
Is it so? Are you with the same group of students?
Yes. So yeah, the students are exactly the same. You stay with them for registration right until you leave. But then just the teachers, sometimes you'd end up going to a different classroom.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But that, for me, that's just my experience. Like I had Mr. Francis for 5 years of my life, and the last 2 I had like, it was a mixture of like Mr. Kelly, Mrs. Owens, and it was just a different mixture of people for some reason. I don't know why, but I was always with the same kids in my class, so like we were always
Interesting.
together. So this makes sense. Like Nick and Charlie being together all the way through registration, absolutely bang on.
Nice. Okay. I was curious because like for us, both change every year. Like it's the same for all the semesters of the year, but then once you go back, you'll get a new homeroom and it's completely different mix of kids too. So you kind of like get a little scramble every year.
Right.
So we see that they're holding hands in form, which is super
Under the
cute.
desk.
So
Yep.
cute. Farouk's immediately like, quiet down. This is day 1. Don't start acting up. And then in a very cute parallel to Charlie's birthday in season 1, Charlie turns to Nick and says, it's your birthday on Saturday. And Nick's like, yeah. And he says, do you want to do something? And he says, I don't know. I don't normally have a party or anything. And it just makes me think about the comic when he does like try to have his dad over for dinner and stuff, and his dad cancels. I'm like, I'm glad we didn't have to see that trauma again this season. It just made me think of like how he's about to react in this episode to everything that goes down around his birthday is like this is the first time he's ever been treated like this by friends. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see him get what he deserves.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it is. And it's like when the birthday does come around, you can just see how he appreciates everything. Just like the thought that Charlie's put into it all, and just, the fact that all of his friends are there and like they just have, a great day at the zoo. Like,
Yeah.
but you can see the appreciation on his face. He doesn't take anything for granted. And that's one thing I really like about Nick, is that he never takes anything for granted.
Yeah.
And I really like that in his character. And like, again, here, when he's saying this, he's kind of saying it tongue in cheek to Charlie, because he's like, I kind of already know. But then, when Charlie's like, oh, yes, I've got everything planned out, like, blah, 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 like it lines with their characters really in a really cute way.
Yeah. And Mr. Farouk's like telling them to calm down. And then we get one of my favorite lines. I feel like Mr. Farouk has some of the best one-liners in the entire show. And he says, yo, big man, shirt tucked in. Yeah, this isn't Mr. Ajayi's hippie class. You're representing Farouk right now. It's so good.
He delivers it so well.
Mr. Ajayi's hippie class. Yeah, so Charlie's like, I'm going to organize something. And Nick is like, you don't have to. And he says, I want to. It'll distract me from, my brain. And we see Nick's smile starts to fade a little bit. Like you said, it's like that crash back down to reality is happening. And the bell rings and Nick is like, okay, well, I'll see you at lunch then. Picnic benches. And Charlie freezes and the score kicks in, coming for our hearts. And we get this flashback with Diane, and it's them on the beach, and she's like giving him instructions for her, like advice on how to talk to Charlie. And Nick is taking notes on a postcard, which like it hurts so much because that's such a Nick thing to do. Of course he's taking notes. And she says to choose a place where they both feel safe. And so he puts down safe place. She says to tell him about the things that concern him. So he puts concern. I love his like little, the way that he paraphrases what she's saying.
Yeah.
She's like, let him know that you care about him. So he's like, care. And she's like, this is an important one. Try to avoid making the conversation about food and weight. And that is a very important one. I was really glad that this conversation happened. Because had he not had that advice and gone in and did kind of focus on that, I think it would have gone a very different way.
And especially the fact that, later on in the episode as well, like Charlie doesn't want to be in photographs, so to talk about weight and appearance, and like had Nick gone fully in with like, oh, you're looking really skinny, or not that Nick would ever say that, but you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like,
yeah.
The effect of focusing on body image right now when you're going through something like that is just going to push Charlie even further away. So yeah, it's great that was highlighted as the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. She says, it's going to be okay. He's fortunate to have you, which is another, this episode is just full of parallels. It's another parallel to Sarah telling Charlie, Nick is lucky to have you. They're lucky to have each other. Okay. Also, this scene is one that Alice mentioned in her most recent Q&A on Tumblr.
Oh.
Which is ongoing at the moment. What she's been doing is like just doing a couple of answers a day, kind of like sprinkling in so she doesn't get overwhelmed. And so Jessie Bear 16 asked, I was wondering really randomly, what was the first scene that was shot for season 3 and what was the final scene that was shot for season 3? And Alice said, that was a fun question. The first scene that they shot was the fish and chips scene at the beach where they're eating lunch, which is a very interesting way to start your filming. Like for the actors, I would imagine like that's a very weird spot to like jump in, but they all did great.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense if they're trying to catch the weather while it's still there before it gets even colder.
Yeah, like we knew that the beach scenes were what they did first, but I think it's interesting that they started specifically with such a heavy, like that's a pretty heavy scene.
Yeah, like specifically the fish and chip scene of that time at the beach. Yeah, makes sense.
And then the last scene that was shot was the love can't cure mental illness scene. And this scene, she couldn't remember like which order they did these two in, but they obviously shot them on the same day. And so this was one of the last things that they shot.
Interesting.
Which makes me wonder more about Kit's statement about not feeling like he did a good job in the Love Can't Cure Mental Illness, because he said they only had an hour. It was their last day, so he was probably exhausted.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably, there's more to that answer than what we can comprehend.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when, like, as an actor, you feel like, oh, I've given my everything, and now I've got this last emotional scene, and then after this, we're done. So, like, in a way,
Yeah.
that's probably was going through his mind, and a lot of that might have worked around Hilly, like, Atwell's schedule as well. So when she was available to shoot, which makes sense because she's an absolute icon, but that just doesn't come across in the scene at all.
No.
Like, it's just as we
so
said in the last episode, he did incredibly well. My God,
Yeah.
so well, and Hilly Atwell as well. But that woman is a goddess. She can do no wrong.
So then we come crashing back to the present. And now that he's remembered this, he kind of switches it up and offers that they could go eat in the art room, which Charlie obviously smiles and agrees to. But as he turns around, we see like the smile falls off of his face and the anxiety bubble creeps in, and he grabs his arm and starts squeezing. And I think now we have a clearer picture of the timeline for the self-harm stuff.
In season 1, was Charlie also exhibiting like behavior like this when he was like squeezing his arm and stuff?
I don't believe we see it in season 1, but we see it in season 2 start up, like in Paris and stuff.
That's interesting. It's been a really great through line in that way, then how it's built up more, and how like a little moment like that of him grabbing his arm means so much. Like that gives so much away. But yeah, again, it could just be a thing, like a natural response to him of when he is feeling so over encumbered, I guess, in these points of his life where it is just that, almost like doing it without thinking about it, just scratching or picking,
Okay, so then we cut to an assembly of some kind. And Isaac, no surprise, is reading. And Tal's looking at his phone, and he turns around and he starts to show them Elle's post from Lambert. And it's like a really cute story of Felix and Naomi and Elle, and they're doing the like anxious smile face emoji. It's super cute. And when he's like, Elle's posted from Lambert, and then he turns back around to his phone, Charlie and Isaac share a look that's like, oh, this is going to be a thing.
Yep.
And they are correct.
They are doing the roll eye emoji, just...
Yeah. And so then we go to math class, and he turns around and he's like, Elle's making a new sketchbook, and it's another Insta story. And Charlie is like, at this point, he kind of giggles about it, but Isaac's already looking like capital A annoyed, like he's not going to handle this very well.
Yep.
With Tao, I love this. I love this so much. I was really hard on him in season 1. I fell in love with him in season 2. And now I'm like, protect this boy at all costs. I just love it so much. And then we cut to science class. And he turns and he says, look, Elle's posted with her new friends. And that's the last straw. The last straw for Isaac. And he's like, Tao. He's so firm in his delivery too. He's like, Tao, I love Elle, yeah? But I don't need a minute-by-minute update of what she's up to.
And he's absolutely correct. He's totally correct in this moment. But, like... It is nice with Tao that, like, she brings the best out in him, and as we said earlier, like, we see different parallels of, like, what that other person means to you, like, when you're, feeling this new love for the first time. So, like, we get it. But I do love later on that Isaac and Elle call him on, like, his behavior in this episode because it really needed to happen. Yes. And I think they're both very correct in what they say, obviously, when we get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is cute. You know what I mean? It's cute. Yeah. We've been there. We get it.
Supportive boyfriend Tao. It's adorable.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he like groans and he says he's sad and he misses her. And Charlie says, Tao, it's been one day. He's like, I just went 3 weeks without mine, okay? And at least you can text. We didn't even have service. I also love this where he says, I'm so alone. Yeah. And Charlie's like, okay, what are we, your imaginary friends? It's so good.
Yes. Call him out on it.
And Isaac's like, you can't keep making your whole life your relationship, Tao. And then this takes a turn because Tao is like, well, Charlie is, so why can't I? And Charlie's like, what? No, I'm not. Which, and you have to think about the fact that, like, Tao didn't even realize that Nick had gone on vacation. So, like, for part of those 3 weeks with Charlie's avoidance, he was assuming it was for Nick, like, that he was just with Nick.
Yep.
And so, like, I think Tao has a very skewed perception of Nick and Charlie at this point in time, just because he's been so wrapped up in his own stuff that he's missed a lot of what's going on with them individually, but also them like as a unit.
Yeah, and that's why it makes it more impactful later on when Elle has that conversation with him and says, look, you know, you said the same thing to Nick before when like he was so wrapped up with his boyfriend. It makes that so much more meaningful because, you know, he has his head buried in the sand right now and the sand is Elle. Like, you know, he has his blinkers are on. That's all he can see. So he is missing a lot. So that is on him, really. Whereas, you know, I know Isaac's not in a relationship, but at least Isaac is still checking in on, you know, on Charlie. Whereas Tao is not doing that. And don't get me wrong, like, I don't mean to sound like a hypocrite. We've all, you know, had that first love when we got into relationships and suddenly everything else has become void because this person is the thing in our lives. But at the same time, as you said, like his views become completely like skew with now because of that.
Yeah. It's not like he did it on purpose. And I'm not blaming him for anything. I'm just stating the facts.
This is what happens.
And Charlie's like, no, I'm not. And Tao's like, oh yeah, well, who are you eating lunch with today? Nick? And Charlie kind of like, he's just like, doesn't say anything. And Tao's like, And Isaac tells them they need to get a life. And Tao goes back to scrolling and we hear them. They're like trying to make a light bulb come on, I guess. They're doing some sort of electricity experiment. And we hear Charlie say, if I just plug this one in? And Isaac is like, yeah, go on. And then they clearly are successful because you hear Isaac go, hey! And Charlie goes, we lit a light bulb. We lit a light bulb. Very cute. And then we get this shot of Elle's Instagram, which is like a mix of her art and photos of her that are likely taken by Tao. And then there's like a picture of Charlie and Isaac at the beach and one of Naomi and Felix, and they're hanging out. And then he switches to his profile and it's all just pics of him and Elle or just Elle. And there's one group shot of the beach that we see, but that's it. And I think like he really starts to do some thinking here, because it's such a contrast between the two of their profiles, which is just like driving Isaac's point home.
Exactly that. You know, sometimes it is like just seeing something from a different perspective, whether it's written down, you know, taking yourself out of your own shoes for a second. That's what's obvious here. Like, you know, social media is a reflection, like what we choose to post and what we don't choose to post in our lives is such a reflection of what we, you know, sometimes deem important or what's in our mind right now. What's the big thing that we are interested in? So like, you know, Elle's page is a reflection of her, right? Like she loves her art and she's got pictures with her friends. She's obviously got a picture with Tao on there. And it's like, these are all meaningful things to her and these all inform of who she is, all of her interests. Tao, and I guess in a way, has probably felt like lost for a while before he met Elle, like, especially season one Tao compared to now. You know, when he saw, oh, like, Charlie, you're in this relationship. Like, well, you're just ignoring me. You don't give a crap about me anymore. Now he's in this position.
Yeah.
The shoe is on the other foot. You know, and like he's seeing that now by these pictures and going, oh, shit, like this page represents me right now. And all I'm seeing is Elle. Yep.
So then we walk into the art room.
Oh, I love this.
Farouk and Ajay are like cuddled up and giggling. And I was like, don't let the kids find out. Don't let the kids find out. Gets caught immediately.
And I love that, like, Charlie, he just knows. Like, when he sees them together, he's like, I know what this is. Like, without saying it to them. Obviously, when he says it later on to Nick, he's like, oh, by the way, I think they're dating. Like, I love that. I love this.
So good. So good. Immediately caught. And it would be one of the gay kids that was like, walked in and was like, oh, this is flirting. Like,
I know what this is.
Yes.
Yep.
And he's like, Mr. Ajay, do you mind if I eat my lunch in here? And he's like, oh, yeah, of course. We were just clearing out, weren't we? And Mr. Farouk's like mid-bite. And he's like, yeah, oh, yeah, okay. And like puts he's like, okay, I guess I'll go fuck myself, basically.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And so he bolts. And Ajay stays behind and he's like, obviously wanting to question Charlie because it's day one of the
Mm-hmm.
semester and he is in the art room already for lunch. And so he's like, I thought
Yeah.
you'd be catching up with your friends. And Charlie's like, yeah, I will. I just prefer eating in here. It's less stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an eyebrow raise moment for Mr. Ajayi. He's like, right. And kind of looks at him like, do you want to expand on that?
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie does. He says, my brain isn't good at the moment. And Mr. Ajayi says, well, that's okay. We all have bad brain days, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get like the music swells and Charlie's like hesitating and we see this shot of his food. And then he starts to open up a little bit and he says, I have a lot of rules about it doesn't matter. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And this whole time, like the anxiety bubbles coming in and we see the food with like the swirls and the outlines. And I think it's interesting that he asks this question, which I guess in this situation, you have to be very careful and thoughtful about how you say things, right? Because you don't want to not do an open-ended question or anything like that and like kind of lead them into telling you something they don't want to. And also at the same time, you don't want to like pressure them or overwhelm them and have them back away. So like a very interesting question choice. He says, what happens if you break the rules?
I love that question.
Yeah, it's so good because you can get so many answers just from that one question.
Mm-hmm. And like, it's so interesting because, we spend our lives setting up rules for ourselves, like, oh, I can do this, but I can't do this. Or I definitely can't do that, but I 100% can do that. That's something that I will allow myself to do. That's something that I will not allow myself to do. And we do it all the time, like consciously, unconsciously. And like Charlie's doing that right now, where he's like, no, I'm not going to eat my food in public. I'm going to like go here. I'm going to break the food into little bits. I will have it this way. And like he's building up rules for how he will process this in his own mind. But that one question is such a great question. It's like a therapy question, It's like, okay, but all those rules that you've built up, what if we just take them away? Then what happens? And that's a great way to get somebody thinking and reflecting on their own lives and what they're going through at that point. And it's basically asking, but what if things were different?
Yeah.
And that's really important for Charlie to understand right now because things can be different.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And Charlie says, I don't know, but it feels like something bad. And then he's like, I know it's silly. And Mr. Jai's like, no, it's not. And they I think could have made some real headway, but Nick walks in. I'm like, Nick, man, every time he's just about to open up to someone, Nick calls or he walks in and it's like,
yep.
Which is like so funny because his objective is to get him to open up to others.
Right.
At the same
and keep
time.
stalling it so many times.
Yeah. So there's apparently a scene that got deleted that is of Ajayi and Farouk discussing this conversation that happened with Charlie and trying to decide whether or not they need to intervene and tell his parents.
Interesting.
And I wish it would have made it in because something that I felt was really missing after this scene was Mr. Ajayi doing anything, say following up in some way, like which I mean, I guess we go straight into Journey. So but at the same time it just felt like it's the same way that I felt about seasons 1 and 2 about Mr. Ajayi and Elle, because I feel like there should have been some sort of conversation between them. Because we know that Elle and Charlie kind of bonded over eating lunch in the art room as their like safe space. So Mr. Ajayi and Elle obviously had some sort of relationship. And I think it makes sense that he would have checked in. I mean, he was in Paris with her for 5 days.
Right.
And it's we didn't even have to have dialogue. We could have just had them in the background hugging or something, letting us know that they reconnected and that they were, he was checking up on her. And I felt that way about Charlie in this episode specifically, which we do get like the clip of them in Tao's video, like sending him a message, and then like obviously the like Top Boy scene at the end too, like is kind of also like a we're proud of you check-in type situation. But I wish that this scene would have made it because I'm so interested. I want them to release it because I would love to. I'm so curious how that conversation went between the two of them.
Yeah.
Nick can obviously tell that there was a conversation he interrupted because he's like, what were you just talking about? And Charlie's like, oh, nothing. We were just catching up. And this is where we see him start to like tear his sandwich into a bunch of tiny pieces. And that is something that like hits pretty close to home for me personally, because I have done and do still do that sometimes. And like mine is obviously for very different reasons than him. We have, you know, very different eating disorders, but I feel like his tearing the food up like this is more related to the OCD than the actual eating disorder.
That makes sense. I mean, for me personally, again, this isn't, you know, any experience that I have with like eating disorder, but I guess just from an outside perspective, I guess for me it was just him kind of minimizing the food in front of him, so it doesn't seem to be such a big thing where it's overwhelming. Whereas if it's broken up into little pieces, it's easier to kind of, you know, to manage. That's kind of what I got. But I love what you just said there about, you know, the OCD. That makes complete sense. You know, like it is that thing that we know that Charlie does unconsciously, whether it is scratching or when he is like so in his headspace of feeling like at his worst, he is just automatically doing things like kind of almost wide-eyed because he's like his mind is elsewhere, you know?
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense, actually. That's a great point, Ash.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a combination of the two.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. It's totally partially to like minimize it and make it like easier to manage. And this is when Charlie's like, I think he's dating Mr. Farouk. They were sitting together when I came in and there was like a weird flirty vibe in Paris. Like you have been so clocked.
And you're so right, like a gay character would see that and be like, I know what's going on here. Like, you're not fooling me. Like, this is exactly what's going down.
It's like Darcy at the zoo. Seems a bit gay to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly that.
And Nick kind of takes a minute, a little breath, and he's like, so actually about our phone call. And he like turns and gives Charlie like his full attention. And Charlie sighs and turns away from Nick. And he's like, can we just not talk about that? I don't want to think about it today. And we get this like moment of hesitation with Nick because we know that like he's obviously been thinking about this. He like thought this was going to be his moment. He's got them in their like safe place. He's got his postcard with his notes on it. He's ready to go. And Charlie is shutting him out. And I am glad that he decided to wait though, because I don't think having this conversation at school is the best decision.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
And not because I feel like anybody's like listening or anything, like eavesdropping, but like he's got to go finish the school day.
Yep.
And so having that discussion in the middle of the school day is just not the right time.
No, you're bang on. I did think that as well. And like, this is a safe space within a school. Like, it's a different from a safe space in your own home.
Yeah.
You know, time is a factor here. Like, there's so many things that are out of your control. Whereas when you're at home and you're away from all of that in the safe space, when we see at the end of this episode, it makes so much more sense. I know, like, yes, there is a little bit of times it's like, hey, you know, it's 9 p.m. Like, blah, 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 blah. I've got to get back to my parents. But you know what I'm saying? It's like a difference in safe space. It's a less controlled safe space, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah. And also, I just want to say another thing is that we also have to think about how Nick had zero resolution to that phone call because Jane came in, you know, and then he was like, I've got to go. I love you, and hung up. Yeah. And that was it. And so Nick had zero resolution with Charlie about it. So he changes the subject and he's like, so then what are we doing for my birthday? And I also just want to say, shout out yet again to Addie Esker Chase, who does the score, because this track goes from so heavy and so foreboding to mischievous and playful like that. And it is so smooth and so effective. Just so good.
Yeah.
And this is when we get Charlie saying that word again. He says, I've planned everything and it's going to be perfect. And Nick is like, okay then. And he smiles so big. He's so excited.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the little like hangout area in the library that we have seen them hanging out at before. Tao is laying on one bench and Nick and Charlie are sitting on the other. Charlie's asleep on Nick's shoulder and he wakes up and he's like, oh, was I asleep? Which like I've never once woken up and questioned if I was asleep. I was like,
I know.
Why do people are always asking that in shows and stuff? And I'm like, you know when you've been asleep.
You were 100% knocked out there. Like, come on.
Yeah. And Nick's like, yeah, I think you were. And he's obviously concerned and he's like, have you not been sleeping well? And Charlie says, I don't know, I've just got no energy, which is another clue into the downhill slide that his health is taking. And then Tao, freaking Tao.
Mm-hmm. Lets everything
Oh
slip.
man, he's just like not thinking at all. He's not even looking up. He's just talking and
No.
he's like, Elle's good for Saturday. Charlie's like, Tao, it's supposed to be a surprise. Nick says Elle's coming, and then we get this face where Tao's like, oh fuck, I
Like,
fucked up.
whoops. Yep.
And Nick's like, is everyone coming? You didn't have to organize a huge thing. And Charlie's like, I did. I love you. And Nick is so touched. And here's where I have my rant about the birthday stuff with Nick, because he is not used to this outside of Sarah. His dad and his brother, like, barely acknowledge his birthday. If they even, like, I can only imagine they probably forget half the time. And then his friends up until this point have been, like, the rugby lads, which are kind of, like, not super close friends with him, more like casual friends. So they probably don't do anything. No. If they do, it's probably maybe like a movie night or something, like they'll go to the movies or something, but not like something that's focused specifically on Nick. And so, like, I mean, and this kid got emotional when Charlie remembered his favorite candy bar. Like, and he's going to be so excited in a few scenes to find out that he gets a gift that's not just his own clothes. And so it's like, yeah. But yeah, you can just tell that in this moment, like, he feels so loved, and it's just, it's very sweet.
It is.
And then we get James and Isaac setting up this mental health display. And James says, I wish I had a boyfriend. And Isaac, again, so firm. He's like, James, no. It's like, I need at least one single friend, okay? And when I watched this the first time, I just cracked up. He's like so firm about it. He's like, this lot have been third wheeling me at every opportunity. And then we get a very touching conversation between them where James is like, don't you want to be with someone? And Isaac says, I mean, like, the idea of it's nice, but it's just not actually what I want. And James immediately knows, and he's like, oh, so you're like aromantic. And Isaac, just a huge smile immediately on his face. And he's like, what? You know what that is? And James is like, yeah, I read a book where there was an aromantic character, and then I thought about what happened with us in Paris and stuff. And Isaac is like, all right. And again, just huge smile. This is why representation is important in every iteration. And then also, so the signs on the wall, I had to look at them.
I love this.
That they had hanging in the library. Like, there's obviously a bunch of signs. But then there's just like a bunch of really cool quotes that are like classics. So we get to thy own self be true, which is Shakespeare. And then we get I am no bird and no net ensnares me from Jane Eyre. And then we get hope is the thing with feathers from Emily Dickinson. And to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance, Oscar Wilde. And I suppose this is as good a time as any to go ahead and do our book watch, Isaac's book watch for this episode, so we can talk about the books that are on the table. So let's get into that. Hello, we are back again with another Isaac's book watch with Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
Okay, I'm ready to go for this one. We've got quite a lot of books to discuss today for episode 3. The first book that we are going to talk about is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohta and Max Gladstone. We see Isaac reading this at school. Across the scenes where Tao keeps talking about Elle and Isaac's getting frustrated with him. This is a book I have read and really enjoyed. It's a sapphic novella. It's quite unusual. It's written in the form of letters between two time-traveling agents called Red and Blue. I think I'm going to have to go back to read it again, really. It was just so different to anything I'd read before. It took me a while to get into it, but it's very different. It's very enjoyable. And, you know, Isaac whizzes through it in a day, so obviously he's enjoying it and finding it quite easy reading. So I think it's a really nice choice of something that is the fact that it isn't about a straight couple, I don't feel is what was pushed primarily in the marketing of this. It's a sci-fi book, fantasy book. It's about time travel, these sorts of things that when I read it, I had no idea that's what it was about. So it's quite nice that he's now, you know, he always does. He strays outside sort of the general recommendations of what's being read.
Yeah.
And I really recommend that everyone who loves reading reads this book because it's beautiful.
Yeah, I've bolded it. As soon as you started talking about it, I was like, okay, this one needs to be
Yeah.
put on my list. I definitely saw that title though and was like, oh, it's going to be Doctor Who related.
No, nothing like that at all. It's beautiful coverings with the red and the blue bird on the front. It's so nice. It's so nicely done. So I was really happy they chose that. It's so nice when they pick a book for Isaac that I've read, and I'm so excited because it means other people are going to get to read it too.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm all about, is saying, come on, this is a great book. You should read it. So I think my friends get a bit sick of me sometimes with the volume of books that I'm saying, this is so good. But this one is up there. When I read it, I think I read it 2 years ago. It was one of my books of the year. Fantastic read.
Awesome. Yeah, okay. I'm putting it on my list.
Good. The next book we see him reading is the book that he takes to their trip to the zoo, because nothing stops Isaac, even a trip to the zoo. And it's The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. For those who don't know, Lauren James is in the writer's room for Heartstopper. They've been in it since season 2. So Ren and Alice, I think, are quite good friends outside of Heartstopper. So really nice to see that sort of on-screen nod to Ren for their work. It's a story. This one is sci-fi as well. And it's about a girl who wakes up on a spaceship, and she is the only one left alive. And they're trying to get to a new planet for the future of humanity, basically. She reads fan fiction while she's on the ship, and also talking to another ship that's coming up behind her. It's not a romance. It's definitely more sci-fi thriller leaning, but an enjoyable read. And so nice they put it in there just to try and reach out to fans, let them know about Ren James's work. And this is quite an early book, I think. I read it quite a few years ago. Ren's had a book out in the last year, but this one has been optioned for a film in the last 6 months, The Loneliest Girl in the Universe.
Oh,
so
fun.
There might be a film on the way as well, which would be exciting.
Yeah. I think what the newer book is Last Seen Online.
Yeah. And that is sort of operates in the fan fiction reality as well. It's about actors on a show and people shipping them, and then it sort of turns into a mystery looking back onto the past. So very in sort of that kind of vein of fan fiction and how it affects people, and what you perceive as being real in an actor and what's not. I really enjoyed that as well.
Nice.
So I haven't read all of Lauren James's books, but they are all on my list.
Yeah, they're an author that I'm trying to like. I'm gonna probably delve into. I don't read a lot, but I do read.
And I think what I also really liked about this choice of The Loneliest Girl in the Universe is I wonder if it's reflecting how Isaac's feeling. He's at the zoo, isn't he? He's fallen out with Tao. The first time we see it, he's at a picnic bench, and he is feeling lonely. And I wonder if that is sort of resonating with him, that idea that he might have people around him, unlike the girl in the story, but he's feeling really lonely. Yeah. So I think that's why they picked it for that scene particularly.
Yeah, such a good placement. I just want to hug him.
I know. He gets such small parts, but they do such big things with them, don't they, to show what he's going through. So lovely. I want them all to get on again.
I know, yeah.
So then we move on to some bonus books. There's other books in this that aren't Isaac reading them. So the first is in that opening shot of episode 3. Nick's alarm is going off on his phone on top of the book he's reading, which is Queer City by Peter Ackroyd. I was really happy to see this. I know Nick isn't portrayed as a reader. I don't know if that's though in comparison to Isaac and Charlie and how much they're readers. Right. But it's so nice that he's reading around who he is. This is about a history of London from Romans to modern day through a gay lens. So I think it's so nice that he's doing that, learning about his place in society and through time.
And it tracks for him that he would want, like, that's research I could see him doing. Yes. Like, just instead of, he probably Googled and they were like, definitely. There's a book for that. And he was like, great, I'll take it.
So I think a lovely shout out. This was one that we also came out with before the series. So this was in the background of the Tea or Coffee interview when they sat on Nick's bed. So that was me zooming in. What's the book? And I haven't read this one either, but I think it looks great, really interesting. And I love that they include some non-fiction as well. Yeah. As fiction in this spread. I think it's so important to see that.
Definitely.
We also see another book not being read by Isaac, which is Assembly by Natasha Brown. This is quite a hard spot because it is on, when you see Jane and Julio sitting on the sofa when Charlie's been talking to them, it's on the side table next to Julio. So I'm assuming it's Julio reading it, but it's as they pan to Tori. So I definitely missed it the first few times because I was crying.
Yeah.
Blinded by tears.
For sure.
It is a book which is about a day in the life of a Black British woman and looking at her experiences with racism and misogyny. So interesting choice, I think, for them to bring that in, but also really nice, I think, for them to show that Jane and Julio have this awareness of the world outside them. We know Julio's a big reader. They talk about that in Solitaire as well. So it's my assumption that it's his book because he is known to be the bigger reader, and it's on sort of the side of the sofa that he's sitting on.
Yeah.
But again, looks like a really interesting read and has been added to my TBR. This is the problem with me doing this, is my TBR is growing all the time. But a really, really nice way that them just to, stick something in that's not Isaac related.
Yeah, it's nice to spot all these little books that are just kind of like scattered throughout the series.
Yes. Much more realistic, I think, but that's how my house looks. They're just everywhere. And I think they're the same. In Solitaire, Julio is constantly trying to get his children to read things. So maybe he'll be passing this one to Charlie next.
Yeah.
And then, so the last bit is we see Isaac and James setting up another book display in the library. This was such a nice callback to when we see them doing it in season 2. I was so happy to see that it hasn't stopped them hanging out. This time it's a mental health display. So very sort of on with what they want to be talking about. They're doing it right by where Charlie is. So it might be a little like waving the books at Charlie. There is a book called The Year I Didn't Eat. You just want Isaac to like casually pop it down in front of Charlie and be like, this might help. The books are kind of a selection both ways. There's The Year I Didn't Eat and What Mental Illness Really Is, but then there's another couple which are called Super Thinking and Inner Harmony. So I think it's balancing, realistic looks at mental health along with some which are more about positive thinking and moving forward. So it's a really nice way. They're big themes, this series. It's a really nice way for them to suggest books that people can look into for that, and just also have Isaac surrounded by books, which is his happy place.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So we will be back in the next episode.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ashley.
Okay. So then we cut to Charlie's room and he's wrapping the gift and
OCD again.
Yeah. Tori says that it is the 3rd time he has rewrapped that. And he says, yeah, well, I'm bad at wrapping and I want it to look perfect. So again, like you said, these are more hints at the OCD diagnosis that's coming. And like I said, I don't know very much about it, but I do know that the need for things to be perfect is definitely rooted there. Also, I think it's interesting because in the comic, it is wrapped horribly.
Yes, yeah. And makes a point of saying that later on, yeah. But I do love Tori's face acting in this scene. My God.
Yeah.
Charlie's barely looking at her, but yet she is showing every single emotion on her face. Like concern, doubt, like questioning, everything is there. Like, wow, I eat up any scene that she's in. She's so good at this, right? Like, it's that show don't tell, it's beautifully done. Like, she has so much concern for her brother. She doesn't want to overstep. And this conversation carries on when she speaks to Nick later, and like, it's beautifully played. That concern she has, that worry, they're kind of talking to each other without being direct with each other, but they both know where each other are. And it's just, this is like the prelude to that. It's really good.
Totally. This shows us like how in tune she is with Charlie and his emotions, because before she even brings up the food, we have this conversation about the wrapping. And like, when you're doing something and you're like getting frustrated and you get kind of like frazzled, like as hard as he may be trying to like remain cool in front of her, you can feel that energy, and she can feel that like frantic energy coming off of him. And that's, I think, why she brings up the wrapping in the first place. And then she asks about, are you going to eat there? And he says, yeah, if they've got stuff I like, which is a very non-committal answer.
It's diverting. Yeah.
And she knows that that's what that means. Like the answer he gave her, he might as well have said no by the look on her face. There. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And so then the doorbell rings and Charlie bolts. He runs downstairs. We get a very cute hug, happy birthday hug. And then he says he's going to go grab his shirt and he'll just be 2 minutes. And this is another instance of him, like, we really get to see that he is like in full control of this trip because Nick is like, still doesn't know where they're going. And he's like, can I know now? And Charlie's like, no. And like runs away. Like, I'm not sure it's the healthiest thing, but he's like basking in having the control here.
Yeah.
He's watching Charlie walk away and Tori appears and he jumps. And I think it's so interesting that she gets all the way down the stairs.
Yep, without him noticing.
Her.
I love that about her, the way she teleports around and people keep responding to her like that. And like, how long have you been here? And just like, it's a great gag for that character. It works really, really well.
Yeah.
But I do love here, we get the lighting again of like when Charlie opens the door, Nick's standing there. It's that dream-like, beautiful like light again. It's like, oh my God, he's here. Like, you know, I don't have to have this conversation about everything that is, you know, going on with me. My man is here right now.
Yeah.
I love that when Tori comes downstairs, if you notice, like the lighting shifts, so, like we're out of the dream state because Tori's talking about the real thing. And I love that. It's like so clever in the storytelling of this, where it's like, now we're back to reality. Like we're not looking at Nick the way Charlie sees him. We're looking at Nick the way Tori sees him in this moment. And she's like, I'm cutting straight to what's important right now. How is he doing? Let's have this conversation while we've got 30 seconds while he's out of the room, you know, and it just changes the whole scene. And I love it. It's so well crafted like that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I didn't even think about it like that. Did you watch Kevin Can Fuck Himself?
Oh my God. What a show. That is the perfect example. Yes. You know, like when she's in the sitcom and like there's the laugh track and everything's beautiful and like the lighting and everything, it's all colorful. Yeah. The moment she steps into the kitchen by herself, it's like gray and just dreary. And she's like, for fuck's sake. And it's just, that show works. So that's a perfect example here. Works so well. God, what a show. Let's cover that next.
Yeah, man. I was thinking about that show for like weeks after I finished it because I was just like, holy shit.
Great show.
But yeah, that's such a good point. It is like he's seeing Nick and like being happy to see Nick, but also he's planned this quote unquote perfect day too. So the door's open, Nick is here, he's about to go out into this perfect day. So of course it's like bright and shiny. And then when he's gone and it is just the two characters who are extremely worried for him, it's darker. That's such a good point. So she tells him happy birthday and he says thank you. And then he immediately brings it up. He's like, and thank you for the message last week about, and kind of just like gestures. And she asks if he talked to him and he says, yeah. And she says, and he says, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to get him to talk to your parents. And she says, okay, well, thank you. And then there's a pause. And then she says, for trying. I think that she has no faith that he's going to talk to her parents at all. And so she's like, oh, well, thanks. Like, thank you for trying, but like, that's not going to happen.
And like, fair enough for her to think that, right? Because she doesn't know, like, the conversation that Nick's had with his aunt, who's a therapist. Like, she doesn't know about that. So like, you know, she probably thinks, oh, well, this is the end of that, you know, so thanks anyway, but it's not going to do any good. So she probably is feeling a lot more like hopeless here.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you know, no, Nick's got a game plan.
Yeah, especially because of the dynamic between Charlie and Jane, but also between Tori and Jane at this point, where Jane is kind of like, okay, I need you to help me with your brother because he won't talk to me about like household everyday things. So she's like, he's definitely not going to talk to her about this massive issue he's having.
Oh, that womanish. That woman.
So Charlie comes back and he's like, we've got 10 minutes. And so they head out. I do like that Nick gives Tori one last look before he shuts the door. Like, I'm working on this. Like, me and you, we're in this together. Like,
yeah.
And so we go outside the zoo. They're walking up. Charlie has his hands over Nick's eyes, just like Nick had his hands over Charlie's eyes going to the beach. And then the dialogue here is like, so are you sure you know where we're going? And Charlie's like, yes. And Nick is like, and you can't tell me anything. And he's like, no. And he's like, well, are we at least almost there? And like at this point, you can like see the group in the background, like shushing and like getting ready. Charlie's like, we're almost there. Nick's like, I feel like I'm going to fall over any minute. Can you please? This is getting a little bit. And I'm like, how long? How long have they been? Where's the bus stop from here? Like, has it been like a whole
9
mile?
miles away.
And so he's like, ta-da! And the whole group is there and they yell surprise. And Muna starts to play.
Ah, what a bop.
So good.
Yes.
So Darcy runs up, hugs Nick. Then we see Elle hug him. Imogen immediately taking photos. She's our photo queen.
Yep.
Tao gives him a pat, and Isaac hugs him. And then Tara and Darcy like lead the pack in, and Nick and Charlie are holding hands. And then Imogen and Sahar come in behind him, and they're bickering. And then Isaac by himself. And he like takes a breath and looks at everybody and then pulls out his book.
Pulls out the book, yep.
Tara and Darcy, they feed the giraffe. They're like hanging out with the giraffe. Tao takes some photos. Isaac starts taking group pics. Charlie feeds a lemur, which is really cute. Yeah. And Nick is like falling deeper in love, seeing animals with his man. He's like, look at his eyes. Oh, he's so cute. Wait, I need to get a video. He's like a little mini Charlie. And then we cut to Imogen and Sahar feeding a baby goat. And this is when we get Darcy say it seems a bit gay. Because not only are they feeding a baby goat, but they're also like giggling and flirting at the same time. Because Sahar's like, look, it's got white hair like yours. And Imogen is like, tee. Like, oh, you noticed my hair. I love Tara being like, it really does seem gay.
Right, like I can see what's going on here, but okay, let's just carry on.
Then they go and hang out with the elephants, and that's when Tara's like, wait, we should all try to take a selfie. And then this is when Charlie, like, you could see him instantly get uncomfortable. The placement of this, when we've already seen, like, they took that other group photo earlier, Charlie was in it. Nick was taking photos and videos of him, and he was okay. And now he's, like, starting to slow down. He's starting to get more tired. Things are getting heavier. And now he's also showing his aversion to, like, the photos. Like, everything's starting to, like, unravel for him. And so he insists on taking the photo. Tao tries so hard to get him to be in the photo. And like when they're taking this picture, you can see the wheels are turning in Tao's head. He's like in the photo, but he's not really smiling. He's kind of just like looking at Charlie and thinking. And then I love this little shot of Nick and Imogen where she's like, we need to get a birthday selfie. She's like, let's get the lemur in it. And then she goes, hi, hello. Like, please don't jump on me. Very cute. And Nick is noticing that Charlie is like fading pretty quickly as they're taking these photos. And then we cut to the butterfly section, which is something that I was very confused about for like several watches before I finally clocked the like little signs with the different types of butterflies on them. I was like, oh, this is the butterflies. Because I was like, what is this tree section? Like, is it birds? Are there birds in there that you can like feed? Like, what is this? And it's the freaking butterflies. Took me too long to get there. I also like the way that this scene is shot. Where it's just like a constant stream of the group for a second. So like we get Nick and Charlie walking hand in hand and they have this little conversation like, oh, you're having a good birthday. And Nick says it's the best birthday. And they kiss. And then as they walk out of the frame, we see like a man and a woman walk in the frame and they like kind of walk through the group. And it's all the girls and Darcy. And they say like, excuse me, ladies. And so then we get this discussion between them about like, don't you hate it when people call you ladies? Which Sahar and Imogen are both like indifferent about it. They're like, no, like I never really thought about it. The teachers, they call us that, like, yeah, whatever. And Darcy just looks like so annoyed to hear them saying this. And Tara is like, do you really hate it like that? And Darcy's like, yeah, like I'm not a lady. It's weird.
It's weird. Yeah.
And then we see like kind of Tara's doing some processing in this scene as well before they walk off. And then we see Tao and Elle walk on. And they have the discussion about like, Elle feels tired. And it's like, yeah, she's been through a lot this week, really, you know, like. And he's like, but your Instagram, it looks amazing. And I think that this is another point I want to make is that while your social media is also, it is a reflection of you, I feel like it's also all the best parts of your life. And so like, it's not always an accurate representation of your life or your state of being. It is just like your highlights. It's all the good things. And so I think that that's a point that I think a lot of people forget when you get sucked into it, you know, and you're seeing it and you're like comparing your life to like someone else's life through their social media. And it's like, okay, but this is not an accurate representation of their life, you know, but especially when you're young, like that can
oh my God.
be a massive thing to like process.
Huge thing. It's like, especially when you're younger, it's even more important to you of like how you control how people perceive you and like how much you care about the way how people see you.
Yeah, so she's telling him, she's just tired. She's, been in a new environment. She says she's like making new friends, which I'm sure she is making friends outside of Naomi and Felix. However, they are still new friends.
Yeah.
She says being with you guys is like being home,
which
is like so accurate. Like when you're trying out, new friend groups, you're trying new things, and then you get to just hang out with like your best friend. Such a different experience for like your body and your mind.
Yeah, absolutely that.
And then we get Isaac, and this is a big blow up. Isaac's like, I love how sassy he is though. Like, I know he's being aggressive, but like at the same time, like Tao needed to be called out on it. And yeah, we know that he's already like starting to understand it a little bit, but what we've seen him start to understand just like touches the surface of how deep this really actually goes. And so I think it is important that they have this discussion as well.
Oh, I'm team Isaac all the way here. 100%. Yeah. He's in the right. He's fully in the right here.
He says, "Oh no, it looks like you're stuck with me again." And that puts Tao like on the defense immediately. He's like, "What does that even mean?" And Isaac says, "Well, it's just so painful for you to hang out with us and not your girlfriend." And Tao says, "Why do you have to be so bitter about me and Elle dating?" And then this is when the volumes, it starts to raise. And Isaac kind of yells back. And he says, "I'm not bitter. You've just not been a good friend lately, Tao. All you care about is your relationship." And we see like the group turns and like starts to pay attention. Then Tao says, "Well, if you're so sad about being single, what happened to James?" Tao, take it back. Put it back in your mouth. Put it back in your mouth. Wow. What the hell?
Wow. Like, what a horrendous line to not understand something. Do you think he chose to be aromantic? Like, do you think that was a decision that he made? Do you think, it's just...
But even without the arrow piece, like, if their relationship didn't work out, it didn't work out. And the last thing that he needs is you pouring salt in that wound.
So, like, back the fuck off.
Yeah. It was 100% a weaponized statement.
He was trying to upset Isaac. Yeah.
He was doing it to get a dig in.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting how the group reacts. They're like all kind of watching. And when Tao looks back over at them, everyone turns away and doesn't make eye contact except for Elle and Charlie. And Darcy holds their line of eye for just a second. And then they turn. But Darcy looks like they're going to come over there and bop, bop, bop. Like, they look not happy. Everyone else looks kind of confused. And, like, you can tell that Elle and Charlie are, like, pissed off at the interaction of how Isaac was treated, but also, like, really concerned with Tao. I do laugh at Imogen. Because she's taking, when this all starts in the background, she's taking a video of the butterflies. And she turns... And she, like, has her phone, like, taking the video. And when she turns, she has it kind of, like, in front of her with the camera facing Tao and Isaac. And she films this interaction. And we know because when Tao turns back around and looks, she covers the camera up and then starts humming, like, do-do-do-do, and, like, stops the recording and turns around. And I'm like, hopefully she deleted it. Like, because she clearly, like, that was not her intention to record it, just like, happened. But like a nice little comedic beat to end that scene on real quick.
Yeah, it was genius.
And so then we cut to some picnic tables and Tao's like aggressively dipping his fries in the ketchup. And he looks over at Isaac, and Isaac is sitting with his arms crossed, which I feel like we rarely see Isaac like closed off. And when he sees Tao looks at him, he like turns his whole body away. So petty.
The girls are fighting.
Yeah. Imogen's like sitting between that, like in between them, looking back and forth at the two. And we get this conversation. Tara's obviously trying to like break the ice, like get everybody interacting a little bit more. And she asks, "What animal would you be? But you can only choose from the ones we've seen today." And without missing a beat, Sahar says she'd be a zebra. And I was like, I don't know why, but the zebra is a very bisexual coded choice. I can't really explain why, but to me, that feels like a very bi answer.
I love that.
And this is when we cut to Charlie and the voices kind of all get distorted. The anxiety bubble creeps in. He's rubbing and squeezing his arm, and Nick notices. And I love this habit of Nick. Whenever Charlie is squeezing his arm, he always, like, not always, but a lot of the times when he wants to intervene, he'll touch that hand or grab that hand. So he reaches over and grabs it and lowers it. He like takes it away from himself, basically. And he says, shall we go somewhere quieter? And Charlie snaps on him. He's like, very aggressively says, no, it's fine. And like, as soon as he says it, you can tell that he regrets it. And Nick is like fully taken aback.
Yeah.
This is the first time we ever see it happen. And based on the way that Nick reacts, I feel like this might be the first time he's like fully snapped on him.
Yeah.
Which is a major indication to Nick about exactly how bad it's gotten over these 3 weeks while he's been gone. Like, he had an idea from the text from Tori and their phone call.
Yeah.
But then, like, the art room lunch scene in this episode and this scene are, like, really starting to, like, paint the full picture for him. And you see him, like, as we move on to the group again, you see him, like, processing, and he looks pretty upset, and he's, like, starting to, like, pick at the fries again. And I think in that moment, he is really, like, processing how bad this is actually getting.
And like, as well, it's interesting because for a while we've seen Charlie as like such a perfectionist, right? Like, everything has to be right. Everything, you know, this birthday, I planned it all. This all needs to be right. The present wasn't wrapped properly. It needs to be wrapped 3 times before it's right. So anything that takes him out of that routine that he's planned in his own mind, linked, I guess, with the OCD, no, that's not going to happen. You know, we're not going to have that conversation right now. This is your birthday. I've planned this. It's going to go this way. You know, so it's very much like that. And it's leaning further into those signs of that OCD.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point, like the need for control and like have everything be perfect. It's already off kilter because of this fight between Tao and Isaac. So things are already getting out of his control. And then Nick suggests another thing that is not in line with his plan. So that probably contributes to why he snapped so hard.
Yep.
And Nick looks like he's going to cry. And then we cut to Tao, and he like sighs and looks over at Isaac again. And this is when Elle is like, okay, guys, this is getting really uncomfortable. And Isaac says, well, I'm not apologizing. And Tao says, well, neither am I. And Isaac says, cool. And Tao says, cool. Cool, 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 cool. And that made me laugh the first time I watched it. And then I felt justified because as I was rewatching this scene, like over and over again to make notes, if you pay attention to Toby, I think this might have been an ad lib. The cool, 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 cool. I think that because he like fully breaks character. You can see him like start to laugh, and he like turns his back so that the camera like can't catch his full laughter.
Right.
But like Will's delivery is just so good. So hard. I don't know how they do it. I would just be cracking up all the time.
Yeah. It's really well played because of the pettiness of it. You know what I mean? It works so well.
Yeah. And so then Elle's like, right. Okay, so let's go get ice cream. And they get up and leave. And then Sahar checks in with Isaac. And she's like, are you okay? And Tara jumps in. She says, Tao and Elle are just in that obsessive phase. It'll pass. And then we get this rant from Imogen. She's like, yeah, it's totally normal. When I dated my first boyfriend, I was obsessed. And then I was obsessed with Nick when I liked him and Ben. But then I got it all over it all like super quickly. And Tara's like, immediately calls her out on it. She's like, oh, I kind of thought you did not like Ben at all. And she's like, I don't know. I guess like I was obsessed with the idea of like having a cool boyfriend, but when I was with him, it was just kind of really boring. And the whole time that this is going on, I'm like staring at Sahar, like watching her every move and watching her just get like more and more annoyed, being like, if I have to hear about Imogen's fucking boyfriends one more time. And so then she is just like, cuts them off and was like, we're supposed to be comforting Isaac. And Isaac's like, yeah, and none of you are helping, but thanks. And so then they have this very cute exchange where Tara like feeds him a fry, and she's like,
I do love
little
this.
plane. Ooh. It's very cute.
Yeah, I do love that, like all the girls just comforting Isaac and just making him feel better, and just like bringing him back to like, the friendship circle.
But then we got to Tao and Elle, and they're eating their ice creams that look so good.
Right.
Those look so good. Also, I need this jacket that Elle has on. It is so cute. I am obsessed with it. It's like dark green and it has all these different flowers on it. It's very cute. And this is when we get that discussion between them where Elle is like, what you said was kind of mean. And he's like, yeah, well, he's been really passive aggressive all week. And she's like, well, maybe he has a right to. Maybe we have been ignoring all of our friends. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I guess we have a little bit. And then he admits the truth, which is that going from seeing her every single day to seeing her like not at all. And he says, I've been like, and she says, you've been like moping? And he's like, yes. And this is when she gives him like the come to Jesus that he needed. And she's like, I'm flattered, but I know you love them just as much as you love me. And the only difference is that you don't want to kiss them. Which is like another way to like put it into perspective for Tal. Like, these people all mean so much to you and you need to like get your shit together. And she says, I've been a bad friend too, which is good on her for taking accountability. And she says, she barely saw Tara and Darcy all summer, but friends are important. And then she says the banger, which is, you got angry at Charlie for doing this exact same thing that we've been doing. I'm like, yes, exactly this.
Yep.
And Tal's like, the look on his face, he's like, well, shit.
You got me there. Yep. And I'm like, read him for filth. Like, you're absolutely bang on the money here. But it needed to be said because we go back to season 1. You remember Tao was like really bratty about it with Charlie. So bratty with him. And now he's
worse than Isaac.
100%, like 100 billion%.
Yeah.
And now, like, he's so caught up with like his girlfriend, he's not even realizing the pain that his like best friend is going through. So like reality check here needed.
And it's like one thing to not recognize your friend going through something that you have never experienced, but this is the exact fucking thing you experienced. And it's like, what are you doing, my guy?
Yep, open our eyes.
And then we cut to the jellyfish exhibit, which Isaac is watching alone, which I thought was very pertinent that they put him at the jellyfish tank by himself to start us off with this scene. I had questions about the connection between jellyfish and asexuality. So I looked that up, and jellyfish can produce both sexually and asexually. And there's a lot of use of jellyfish designs and stuff within the ace community. So that's the tie-in here.
That's cool to know. Plus, like, we see the jellyfish like swim off and float around Isaac specifically, so that makes sense. That's interesting.
So we see Tal like slowly approach,
creep around. Yeah.
Basically with his tail tucked, coming over to say he's sorry. He apologizes, and Isaac's like, it's okay, I apologize too. And Tal says, you're right. I've been ignoring you guys since me and Elle started going out. I've had like romance goggles on, and he does like this funny, and he gets a laugh out of Isaac. And then he's like, it's been great, but I've been a bad friend and I'm going to do better. And Isaac starts to open up at this point. He says he's felt like a third wheel all summer, and that he hates that he feels bitter. And everyone makes it seem like being in a relationship is the most perfect magical thing that anyone could ever hope for. And then Tal slips just a little. He's like, well, it does feel pretty magical. And I'm like, shut up, Tal. That's not the point.
Not the time. Not the time to help him right now.
And this is when Isaac says, it's just really hard when I know that that's not what I actually want. And at this point, the group is like wandering over and regathering into this little jellyfish corner. And he says he's still coming to terms with it. And then we get this lovely metaphor situation that happens with Darcy asks, do they think that there are any gay fish? Charlie immediately is like, absolutely, there's gay fish. And Darcy's like, well, that one's gay. I can tell for sure. Like, that's the one that's gay in this tank. And then Imogen of course, is the one that's like, do you think they fall in love? And Tara's like, oh, I hope so. And then Isaac seizes this opportunity to kind of test the waters and kind of slowly come out to them. He's like, well, what about the ones who don't fall in love with any gender? Do you think they're okay being just on their own? And I love that Nick does not even miss a beat.
Nope.
He knows exactly what's going on and exactly what Isaac is saying. And he's like, I don't think they're on their own. They've got loads of friends, which I think is... I'm going to get emotional.
That's okay.
It's going to be important for Nick coming up too when Charlie goes away and his friends all of his friends, the rugby lads are there. This group is there, like, and he's got them to like lean on and to help him get through that period. And I hope that Isaac comes out of, like, it makes sense that he would be a little insecure about it because one, he's been separated from the group this entire summer.
Yeah.
Two, he's not sure how they're gonna react to the Aero thing, which, like, you can assume that this group of people would be accepting.
Absolutely.
But it's still so scary.
Yeah.
Especially in a group setting like this and not just like a one-on-one.
Yeah, it's like, it's a tough one. It's like, it's underrepresented within, like, conversations about sexualities and everything like that. So it's really good that he takes this moment to really lean into that metaphor. And I love, as you said, I wrote it down, like the way Nick says that line, but like is looking straight at him, like, and doesn't break eye contact with him. And like, it's like a little bit of a smile as if to say, like, don't worry, man, we got you. Like, and that's him, like, that's Nick opening the door for Isaac to walk through the door, and that's I really love that. Like, that's like we know what's going on, man. Like, don't worry, we accept you. I think, I do wish one little thing. I do wish we didn't have the line later on where it's like, I don't think we're talking about fish anymore, because it's like, well, yeah, clearly. But I wish I just wish that line wasn't there, because the scene can just breathe itself, that we know what's going on as the audience. But the build up in this is really lovely. Like, the line, like, it's a process, like that's beautiful. That's really strong. I actually wrote, this is a lush moment. And I stand by that sentence there.
Yeah, it's a great moment. I actually like I don't think we're talking about fish anymore. And here's why. When he says, what if all of its friends were couples flaunting their magical relationships everywhere they went? And Imogen, immediately on the defense about herself and Sahar, is like, me and Sahar aren't a couple. And then Sahar is also on the defense about those two being paired together. And she's like, but who said we were? Right. And so, like, it's obvious that, like, they're caught up in putting themselves in this situation and also at the same time being like, no, don't perceive what's going on here. Right. And Darcy's the one that has to come in and be like, we're not talking about fish. So I kind of like that little cut. And it, like, also, I think that at this point, literally everyone in this group kind of already has them paired as a couple. Yeah. And this is a clue to that, of Isaac being like, everyone here's in a pair. And, like, they're not even established as a couple. Right. But everyone's like, we know what's happening here. Right.
And plus, like, Isaac's the one who is on the outside right now. So if there's anyone who has the time and space to view people, like, he's going to be the one that would be like, well, you guys are always together. Like, you're clearly like a pair. Like, whatever this is, you are a pair. So let's be real right now,
And Darcy already clocked him earlier. And so they're the one that are like, this isn't about you. Like, and we're not talking about fish. Like,
like, let's read the room.
Yeah, you too. And then that's when we get, like, the jellyfish animation. He's like, do you guys see where I'm going with this? And I was like, we get it. And we get this beautiful jellyfish animation. And then he starts to, like, open up about how he's feeling about it. And I think that this is a very important scene, because I think there is this pressure to be like, it doesn't matter what the sexuality is, but, like, once you declare yourself that, to be, like, out and loud and proud about it. And, like, it doesn't happen like that for everybody. Like, like you said, that line of it's a process, like it absolutely is a process, and you owe it to yourself to take the time to go through that process.
Yeah.
I also like that he says that he doesn't know how to feel okay with it, and that it changes everything that he thought about himself and his future. Because it is like that when you finally start to like realize and understand. At least it was for me. It was kind of like earth shattering, right? It was like, oh my God. Oh, everything's making sense. But also at the same time, now nothing makes sense, you know?
The beauty here is that Isaac is with a group of queer friends. So it's a lot easier in a way to express himself and have that conversation. Of course, there's no pressure to do that. I'm just saying he's got like a safer environment compared to, I don't know if it was the same for you, Ash, but for me, I had a lot of straight friends growing up. So it was like, oh, how do I have this conversation, you know? And that's why you hold on to it for so much longer.
Definitely. And then we get the callback to season 1 when Nick says, I think it's normal to be upset. When I first realized I liked Charlie, I cried in an Am I Gay quiz, which was so cute. I love it. And then we get Charlie saying that it's a process. And then Tao's like, and we love you, which I think is a very important thing to like end on. Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes or like what you end up deciding. Like, I think that labels are something that are like so dumb, to be honest, like, because you are constantly changing throughout life. And so I think that there's still a bit of a stigma in like changing your label. And like, you know, I think it's totally fine to feel one way, you know, in a period of your life and then feel different later. So I'm like, don't put yourself in a box. Just be who you are. It's fine.
Yeah, we never stop evolving. But I think it was important for Tao to be the one that said, and we love you.
Yes.
You know, that's kind of him just saying, we're cool. And like, I still love you. Like, you know, we're past this now. Like, we're back on track, you know?
Yeah. And then Charlie sits down on the bench and Nick walks over and he sits down too and asks if he's okay. And Charlie's like, yeah, I just needed to sit down. I feel really tired. And we see Tao is noticing this interaction. I think that this is the point in the episode when I really started to like chew on Tao and Charlie's dynamic at this point. Because like I started to think about it with the photo stuff, you know, but it wasn't until this moment that I was like, this is probably the longest that Tao has spent with Charlie since the beach.
Yeah, that's probably true, yeah.
The difference in Charlie from the beach to now.
Yeah.
That facade has cracked so much.
Yeah.
He's like really starting to see Charlie's mental health in a way that he hasn't ever seen before. Because we know that like he didn't talk about the bullying or anything prior to season 1. So this is like the worst he's ever seen him probably.
And especially like that long hug that like, you know, he gives Nick and like he's basically falling asleep on him. And like Nick's the one that has to say, we got to wrap this up, guys, you know?
Yeah. So we cut to the gift shop. Before we get into it, I just have to point out that Tara has bought some kind of tail and has it on and is outside like wagging her tail.
As she should be. Love that.
Just so cute. And Tao walks up and basically attacks Nick. He's like, there's something wrong with Charlie. What is it? And Nick kind of like looks over and hesitates. And then he's like, no. He just says no.
Yep.
And Tao is like, there's something you're not telling me. You know something. What is it? Like, what's up with him? And Nick says, I don't think I'm the one who should be talking to you about this.
Correct.
And Tao says, so shall I ask Charlie? And Nick's very reactive here. He's like, no, please don't do that. And he's like, what's going on? He's like, Tao, you cannot talk to him about it. And you can hear the hurt in Tao's line delivery here when he says, but why? Like, he's very hurt that he's like not in the know about this.
Yeah.
And he's like, because he can barely talk to me about it. And Tao like freezes at this point at like the tone and the way that Nick is reacting. I absolutely think that Nick is correct in that, yes, he's not the one that should be talking to him about it. I just think that there was a better way to have this discussion. And I don't know if this is the right, like, I don't know that there is a right way to have this conversation.
Yeah.
But there is a missed opportunity here in that he's just had this discussion with Diane about how Charlie needs more than one person to lean on, you know, and now Tao is like noticing that something's up and wants to be there. This is the intensity with which Nick shuts it down, it feels to me like Tao's going to be afraid to reach out in any way at this point. And so it's like cutting that line of support off. And I'm not saying that he like did it on purpose or like maliciously or anything, but or that it was like bad of him to do that. I'm just saying that that is a result of this conversation, and I'm not totally sure how I feel about it myself. Like, even if it had gone that way, I probably would be saying something, you know, like, well, he should have done this, you know? But, like, I just think it was a missed opportunity, good or bad. I don't know, but...
So, I'll say for Tao that clearly in this episode, he's had an emotional awakening where he's now aware, like, shit, I haven't been there for my friend. I've been basically ignoring my friends. And now something really serious is happening with my friend. And I was always the person to know. And now I don't know. But I really want to help. So please tell me I want to help, because now I want to be there, because I realize how shit of a friend I've been. Yes, I understand you're going through that emotional journey right now. But this so isn't about you, dude. Like, this is, I know you're having that. And it's, you know, you're going through that. But you're just going to have to, and like, that's what I like about Nick in this scene, is like, without saying this as directly as what I'm going to say, but it's like, you're just going to have to accept that right now is not the time.
Yeah.
What I really like about this, and I think what Nick's kind of really trying to say to Tao without saying it here, is that Charlie needs to accept it within himself before he'll be in any position to talk to anyone else. Because right now he's pushing everybody away. So even if Tao did try, even if Nick said to Tao, oh, maybe you should reach out or something, I think it would just fall on deaf ears. But as well, Nick's keeping it in his mind where he's like, we really need to like get the ball rolling here. Like, we really need to get in a position where he's getting professional help, where at least he's admitted to his parents. Because right now, like, that's the biggest thing that we need to do. And then once we've got that sorted, we can be a lot more open about it, because then more people know. And the main thing is, Charlie's admitting to it, and that's what's really important right now. So I take my hat off to Nick. I think, you know, was he getting emotionally agitated? Like, did he handle it in the best way in terms of what he said? Probably not. There was obviously other ways he could do it. I mean, he is a kid at the end of, you know, he is young at the end of the day. He's got a lot that he's trying to handle right now.
Yeah.
But I do like the way that he did shut Tao down, because this is, unfortunately, this is bigger than what Tao's kind of realizing today, you know?
Yeah, that's totally valid. Okay, so then we go outside the shop. Nick handing over the gift bag, and I'm like, Nick. It's such a Nick Nelson thing to buy a gift for someone else on his own birthday.
Yep.
And it's a freaking lemur. It's so cute. He's like, he reminded me of you. He also says it was his best birthday ever, which I believe is again.
Yeah.
He's probably never felt this loved. Charlie calls him cringe, and then they hug. And like you said, Charlie basically falls asleep on him.
Yeah.
And he like thinks about it, and he's like, okay, we gotta get out of here. And so he says that they should call it a day. So yeah, everyone's like, yeah, can do. I'm tired. And then Tara's like the only one that she's like, let's go see the llamas one more time. Yeah. And Sahar's like, okay, Tara, you can stay, and we're gonna go. And Imogen, that's when Imogen says something about like, oh, can we go watch David Attenborough? And then we cut to Nick's room, and he is opening his gift from Charlie. And so first up, it's his like teal green jumper, and he's like, oh my God. And then he pulls out another one, and he's like, Charlie, is this every jumper you've ever borrowed? And then we get like the dark green one and the blue one, and Charlie's like, yeah, well, they don't smell like you anymore. And he's like, they don't smell like me. Are you saying you like my smell? Because I kind of like your smell. And then giggles and like tackles him. I love the like laugh yell that Joe does when he says Nick. He's like, Nick.
Yeah.
It's so good. You can like feel all the like fun emotion that he's feeling in that delivery.
It's so cute.
He's like, don't make it weird.
Plus that smell thing, like, it is a thing. Like, let's be real.
Yes.
Like, oh my God.
So they like roll around flirting. He gives him one back, the one that he had on today. He's like, you have to keep one. And Charlie says, do you like when I wear your clothes? And Nick says, yeah. I prefer the comic version of this, where Nick kind of like blushes and hesitates and is kind of like a little bit embarrassed about it. But I do like that Nick is just like super confident at this point, and he's like, yeah, I do. I like when you wear my clothes. I also love this kiss that when Charlie's putting the jumper on and he like leans over and just gives him a little peck.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we don't get a lot of these little, at least up till this point, like we don't get these little kisses yet. Like they're like making out, or there's like a lot of passion around it, you know, or it's like a comfort kiss, or like, you know, and so for it to be like just a very domestic, like little kiss and then go back to what we're doing, it was just like, I love them.
And it's more real to life, isn't it? Because like obviously the TV show does set up a lot of the kisses where it's like,
right,
we are building to this moment, we are looking at each other, now we are going to kiss, you know, so like, and that makes sense for the formula of a show, but these little moments that when that happens, you're just like, oh, that's the real life, that's the good stuff, you know, like that's the relationship stuff right there. And it's just, yeah, those are the little magic moments.
It's like habitual.
Yes, absolutely, that's the word, absolutely that, yeah.
And then Charlie's like, there's an actual present in the bottom of the bag, and it blows his mind. He's like, another one. I didn't see that. Wow.
How did you not see it, Nick? How did you not see this book that's wrapped up in the bag? Like, how?
It's true. It's because his brain was like, must kiss the boy. Must tackle. But I love wow, that's so cool, because it's like, buddy, of course he's not just going to give you your own jumpers back. Like, you're going to get a gift. Like, but again, he's not used to it.
No, that's it. Yeah, like Nick would have just accepted that because he's not used to that type of attention, right? So it's so lovely. Like his honest,
he loved it.
Absolutely. You know, his honest reaction to that. But I honestly think like this is Charlie truly understanding Nick, like knowing the exact type of gift to get him. Because like, I mean, Nick's reaction is everything, but like this as well, like this is a big Charlie moment for like understanding the core of who Nick is. Like the photographs that he's been taking of them, the memories that he's been capturing, all of this like leads up to this gift being perfect. And it just shows how well Charlie understands Nick. And I just think it's a great moment for them both.
And again, plucked directly from the page and thrown onto the screen. It's so perfect.
Yeah, like the leaves on it and just, it's great.
And the flowers on the inside. It's like, oh my God, I'm dead.
Perfect.
Also, when he pulls it out, he says, oh wow, it's like wrapped very neatly. And Charlie smiles so proud that he got like a compliment on the super perfect wrapping.
Like he noticed that, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so we get you gave me a photo of us in the snow, so here's one of us in the sun, which is like so cute. Nick basically throws the book out the window and jumps on Charlie. And he's like, oh, so you like it then? And Nick just says, I love you. And they start making out some more. And then we cut to Charlie's asleep on Nick's shoulder, and Nick is scrolling. And we see like Imogen at the zoo. We see Jack Maddox.
We see Jonathan Bailey.
So interesting to know that Nick is already following him.
Yeah.
Mr. Jealous.
Sorry, he's so hot. It's like, you already know he's so hot.
You knew, yeah. You just can't be mad about it anymore.
Exactly.
Then you get like the group photo that Charlie took of everybody at the zoo, and then a photo that Charlie has posted of Nick and Charlie with a donkey, and it says a perfect day. And it made me, the look that he like looks over at Charlie made me think of the post prom discussion when Charlie says, everything's fine now. And Nick says, is everything fine though? Because that is kind of like what that look says, is like, was it a perfect day though? Like, yeah, you snapped at me. Like there was, you know, we obviously, there were issues with today that we need to talk about. And like, I don't know. It just, that look said so much, you know?
It really does. Yeah, it's a good point.
Also, this scene at this point and continuing for quite a while is dead silent. There's no score. And
it just underscores the acting in this scene because, my God, like, I was like, when I was rewatching it with like my husband sitting next to me, like we didn't say, we were like chatting through some of the early scenes because like I've seen it, you know, we've seen it before, but this scene, we were silent. It's powerful, man.
Yeah, so he looks over, he grabs the postcard, which has been on his nightstand. And I think that just goes to show you, like, he's keeping this thing, like, on his person, near him, like, he's constantly thinking about this.
Yeah.
So he, like, looks at it, he takes in the plan one more time and sets it back down. And then he very gently wakes up Charlie. It's so cute how he wakes him up, just gives him a little head scritch and gives him a kiss. And Charlie looks up at him, and Nick's like, "You told me to wake you up at 9. And he says, "Oh, is it 9 already?" And he's like, "Yeah." And we see Charlie says, "I don't want to go home." And like he cuddles kind of like into Nick again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Yeah, you're so sleepy though." And I think that like the tone, and probably I can assume that Nick is pretty tense in this moment as well. Charlie kind of freezes, and like you can see him like processing that like maybe Nick is gonna say something. Also, Nick swallows in this moment, and you can hear it. Like, you can hear the gulp.
Mm-hmm.
Kills me. And he continues on and says, like, "And you are really tired all day." And Charlie, at this point, aborts the mission. He says, "Well, I should go home," and, like, goes to get up.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick reaches out and grabs, like, touches his arm and says, "Charlie." And, like, the way he says it is, like, very urgent. And, like, Charlie turns back around. But I think it's important to point out that he doesn't turn around and open himself to Nick. He turns around and sits back on the bed and holds his knees and turns and looks at him. So he's, like, willing to stay, but not ready to be open quite yet in this moment. And again, Nick reaches over and touches the hand that he's got on his arm. And he starts like doing like comfort rubs on it. And Charlie looks down. And like, I think that's really the moment for him that he's like, "Oh, fuck, we're doing this." You know, like when he touches his hand, he's like, and you can see his face. Like the only way that I can describe the look on his face is like defensive.
Yeah.
And so like, he's bracing himself for this discussion.
I think the big thing here as well, I mean, I'll get to what I was going to say, but like the acting here is incredible. And I know like in the last episode, I really bigged up Joe Locke, and I will keep doing that through this season.
As you should.
Absolutely, because we're big supporters here. Wow. Like I know like Nick is doing most of the dialogue, he, like talking and just kind of admitting exactly everything to Charlie here. But my God, Joe's acting, like, just looking away, taking it all in. Like the big thing here for Charlie is that Nick was his escape for so long, and now he's not. Like the one thing that he could run to escape from everything. Like look how we started the episode. As soon as he saw Nick, we're in this beautiful dream-like sequence where he was like, "Oh, I'm away from all of that now. Here's my man that can take me away from feeling like crap, where I don't have to think about this anymore." Now we get this scene where there's no music, there's no fancy lighting, they're in their bedroom, it's darker, and he hasn't got Nick as his escape anymore. Nick is making him face head on what is going on, and we need to have this conversation. And all of that is going through Charlie's mind, and Joe just plays it so damn well, like so well. Like when he's sitting there and just mulling it over and he's just listening, and it's the realization, everything in his mind now is just starting to crack, where it's like, oh my God, we need to face this. And that's why, when his kind of immediate reaction is to turn around, just hug into him and just break down, it makes complete sense. It's built up to this moment.
Yeah, for sure. So Nick goes in, follows the plan. He says, "You know that I love you, and I'm really glad that we talked about the mental health stuff. I'm just still really worried about you. And it's not just the eating thing. I've noticed that you've been really stressed and tired, and sometimes you just seem really sad." And at this point, he starts to cry, and I start to cry, and we're all crying. And he's like, "I know I've made things worse. I know that I've said the wrong thing, and I don't know what to do. I know you don't want me to try to fix you, but I love you so much, and I couldn't help but try. I realize now that I just can't. I really want you to talk to someone, your parents or a doctor or someone." And like, this is word for word from the comic, except for the I know you don't want me to try to fix you, but I love you so much and I couldn't help but try. In the comic, he just says, I can't fix this.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this, like, breaking it down a little bit more for him.
And it's more positive. You're like saying, but I'm willing to try. So much more positive.
Right. And it's when he says, I realize now that I just can't, that Charlie's face cracks, like fully breaks. And he's been like kind of like rocking and fidgeting. And at that point, he like just kind of breaks down and like turns to Nick, like you said, says he's sorry, and then crashes into him. And Nick obviously is like gripping onto him, hugging him. He's kissing his head. He's like, rubbing his hair. And he's saying, I know it's hard. And Charlie cuts him off. He's like, I just don't feel like I can ever get any better. And he says, you can. I promise you can. You just have to ask for help. And then Charlie says, what if my parents think I'm faking it or they get angry at me? Which are two very valid concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, at least in my experience, I know that a lot of parents of like my friends and stuff like often said like, oh, you're exaggerating, or like, oh, you're just doing this for attention. Like, why? This hasn't been an issue until now. Like, why is this coming up? So like, I think that that's a very valid, especially knowing his mother, that is a very valid concern.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick, like, he thinks for a second, and then he's like, well, maybe I could come with you. Like, they're probably less likely to get angry if I'm there.
And that's brilliant from Nick. Brilliant from Nick for realizing the situation and for finding a solution. That like
and
for
fast.
Yes, exactly. For someone that young to go, all right, well, I'll come with you. And like that is showing that he's taken his aunt's advice and he's adapted it to the situation. And that's really, really smart from Nick. For all that, earlier on in the season, we saw that Nick's grades weren't as good as Charlie's, right? But when it comes to emotional intelligence, Nick is way up there. Like he knows like how to help to diffuse a situation. Like, look what he said to Isaac earlier on. He knows how to diffuse a situation. He knows how to look and care, like to find what that person needs, even when they don't know what they need, and help to guide them towards that. And that's exactly what he does here. And that's, I take my hat off to Nick here. That was the perfect way to approach the situation.
Yeah, 100%. And so then this is when we get this, like, it starts to splice, right? So we get the song kicks in. It's Complex by Katie Gregson McLeod, or Leoid, I'm not sure. And it hurts. It's a fucking painful song. And so we get like a cut of them walking up to Charlie's house, and we get Nick's voiceover. And he says, also, I read somewhere that it helps to write things down. And we get like a close-up of their hands, and then we pan up and they look at each other, and he says it might sound silly, but maybe that could help you talk to them. And the whole time we can hear Charlie like sniffling, like he's not stopped crying yet. And they walk into the house, and then we cut back to the bedroom, and Charlie looks up at Nick and like just shakes his head in agreement, like, yeah, we can try this. And so we cut to them walking like down the hallway. Nick shuts the door, says, Mom, Dad, they find them in the living room. Charlie leads Nick into the living room, which I think it's very important to show that like Nick is there for support. He is not like pushing Charlie in any way. It's not him leading him to his parents. Charlie is in the driver's seat, and Nick is just here to hold his hand and make sure that he has like someone to lean on.
That walk that they do, it's like the 1,000-yard walk, You can see it on like Charlie's face, like the moment they walk through the door together and they're holding hands. And just there's a moment where he just takes like one little breath when he's just like, and it just says like, here we go, but still even he's so tentative about it. He's just like, oh God, like this is it. There's no escaping this now,
Yeah. Especially like, that they had to walk from, I'm sure that 10-minute walk felt like an hour.
Absolutely that, yeah.
Or it felt like 2 seconds, depending on like where he was at in the process, like
that's a good point.
Maybe he wanted it to be longer. And Julio greets him. Jane is like immediately like, oh, well, isn't it a bit late for Nick to be over? And like, good on Charlie for not like popping off, because he very well could have in his emotional state. He's like, he's not staying long. And he says, I need to talk to you about something. Julio's like, what's up? And they sit down on the couch and they're holding hands. And I love that Nick is giving Charlie his like full attention. He's leaned in, like facing as close as he can to Charlie while also like holding his hand. He like is holding a hand and then also has his hand over their two linked hands. Like he is all in, like, I am here, I'm right beside you, shoulder to shoulder, thigh to thigh, like I'm here. Charlie says he's written it down because it's really hard to say. That is a very good tactic, by the way. I have definitely many times utilized this of like, I need to write it all down first and like, let me reference my notes before we have this discussion, because especially if it's an emotional thing, like I get overwhelmed and I forget what I was gonna say, things that I wanted to say, or I'll completely fuck it up, and just say it all wrong. And then the situation gets more intense because then I'm getting upset with myself on top of everything else. So like, definitely can recommend the write it down method.
And I'll share this. When I came out to my parents, I sent an email to my mother because I knew I couldn't say the words.
Yeah.
So, but it allowed me, and literally we're in the same house. I was upstairs in my bedroom and I sent it to her, and she was sitting downstairs with my dad. And I knew like I didn't have the strength at the time to like go downstairs and just say it. Plus, like, I didn't have anyone holding my hand. I didn't have Nick holding my hand. It was just me. But in doing that, I was able to like fully flesh out like how I felt, and I did the typical thing of I'm sorry, it doesn't change anything, and all of that. I probably still have that email somewhere. But yeah. So writing stuff down like that hit home for me because I get it. And as you just said, Ash, like you get it as well. Like it allows you to fully express what you feel because you've had time to sit and think about exactly how you want to express it. And I think that's really what comes across here with Nick, where it's like, with Charlie, when he's reading out, it's like, he's not beating around the bush. He's like straight to the point. This is how I feel. This is what's going on. I basically need help, and I think that's why the look on his mother's face, like, is, oh, holy shit. Like, this isn't anything that this isn't an argument. This is my son crying out for help. I need to do something. I need to step up. And that's why in the next episode, I'll give her a lot of credit.
Yeah. And like you can slowly see it.
Yeah.
Like she's so relaxed. She's more relaxed than we've ever seen her when they walk into this room. The way that she's like sitting on the couch with like her feet up and like she's kind of leaning on Julio a bit. And then like she sits down, she gets more rigid, and then she gets tense, and then they start looking very upset. And then Julio, like, he immediately is just, like, upset. And then it takes Jane, it takes Jane a little bit longer to, like, start to crack and show her emotion on the outside. I'm not gonna go, I know I typically read all the dialogue, but this is a hard scene that touches too close to home. So we're not gonna read all of you all know what they say. We kind of get the like back and forth between Nick and Charlie, Jane and Julio, and then we start to pan over to freaking Tori on the stairs.
Oh my God, Jesus, it breaks my heart. There's something about her and the way that she cries gets me. Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the way that Alison Hannigan is Willow. Like,
I was gonna say the same thing.
Oh my God.
I love that. I was going to say the same thing. It's the eyes.
Big eyes, the big emotional eyes. Like, it's absolutely that. And like, my God, like just when I see her upset, that's what I mean. Like when we get that moment, Christmas Day, and like she looks so upset that like, Charlie's leaving her. Oh my God, it like breaks my heart.
It does.
I love that Tori gets so much more. As the show's gone on, Tori's become much more of an integral character for Charlie's journey. And just, the emotional weight that she carries here is, and that it's only a little moment as well, but it just says everything. It's beautifully acted by her. Wow, 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 wow. So
good. And I it's so weird to watch yourself cry. I'll just say that. When I was editing my reactions to this, like, I couldn't help but laugh because, like, I'm already sobbing, and then we start to cut to the stairs, and in my, like, little cry, squeaky voice, I'm like, not Tori!
But that is correct and valid.
Yeah, like, they're gonna show a story! And it killed me. It absolutely killed me.
Oof.
And we get the like end line where we cut back over to Charlie, and he looks up at Jane and Julio for the first time, I think, since he started reading. And he looks them right in the face, and he just says, I want to get better.
Yeah.
And the like tears well in his eyes, and like he's about to like, he's probably going to sob like as we cut to credits. And it's so many emotions.
Mm-hmm. but
Also,
handled
the
so well.
anxiety bubble is in the credits. So even the credits leave you feeling like somber and anxious.
Yep. And I mean, just everyone was on their A game in this last moment here. Like, everybody in this scene was like giving their best. Even though Nick has no lines, but he says everything in the way he's looking at Charlie. Like his mother, my God, like her little arc of emotions from like being a little bit, I guess arrogant in a way of like, come on, Charlie, you know the rules. Like Nick can't be here at this time. Just suddenly, holy fuck, my son needs me. To go from that in this scene, like her face at the end is pure gold. Like acting wise, it's so strong. And as you say, like even her husband just head in the hands, like, oh my God. Like he gets it before like he like finishes the whole thing.
Well, because Julio has already been showing us signs of kind of picking up on this stuff, right? Like we get that scene in season 2 when he comes home and he like chases him over to the stairs and is like, do you want dinner? And he's like, no, I ate at Nick's, and runs away. And Julio looks at him kind of like, like, and we know that up at this point, like he's continually been skipping dinner. So I think Julio's already been picking up on this, whereas Jane, she knows that he's been skipping dinner and stuff. And I think she thinks it's like a defiance thing to her, right? And Julio knows that it's something else. Something else is going on.
And that's a really interesting point you bring that up, because like for both parents to hear that, it's a different reaction, where for Julio, it's like, oh my God, it's what I didn't want it to be. So he's like, my questions have been answered. Whereas for Charlie's mother, it's more like, oh fuck, I had this all wrong. So it's interesting that both responses there to hearing that are very different. But again, they're two different parents, like they're both noticing things differently. And like, she's definitely more in conflict with Charlie than what his father is. Yeah. But it's just, I just love that. I love when we see this in like TV shows or something, when a character is like, I don't know, so sure about something, and yet they're like, the carpet's like pulled away from them, like that, like they're swept away and they're like, oh my God, I got this so wrong. But I have to do something about this. And that's what I love about the next episode, is that she steps up. And I really like that.
She does, yeah. Heavy ending.
It absolutely is. But it leads us into one of the best
episodes. So good.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about it.
Me too.
But no, this was a great one. This was a really good one. And again, it's like setting us up for like this beautiful, lovely kind of everything's going to be great. Don't worry about it. Like, we're going to focus on making Charlie as happy as we can with Nick, and this beautiful lighting. Everything's dream, like everything's like a lovely dream, to then crashing down to this reality. It's just, it's threaded through that so well. And it's so nice that like, we go from episode 1, Ash, when we spoke about that, where it was just like, oh, what a great introduction. Everything's so lovely, like the gang's back together. Everything's so great. To then come to this, it's like we've just swerved off the road, and like, but in the best way. It's all made sense. All of these little pieces from season 2 are falling into place. And like, the way this like episode 2 bleeds into this episode of like Nick taking his learning from his aunt and putting it into practice, and then adapting it like for such a young guy to just go, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. And it works. It's just all these little payoffs and moments, just all these little threads are really starting to weave together, and it's just beautifully done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you keep bringing up the lighting, and you're so right. And the fact that we start this episode in Charlie's house with the bright dreamlike light, and we're ending it in Charlie's house in the dark at night. It's just like, they're so smart. This crew is so brilliant. Okay, so what is your favorite quote from this episode?
Oof, okay. I have a few, and
that's okay. Sometimes I list more than one.
Right. My mind kind of changed on them as we went through the episode. So one of them is right on early at the beginning. But what happens if we break the rules? I think that's a really important quote. Because it's like kind of setting the ball in motion really for Charlie to change his mind on being so defensive and keeping everything to himself. And for Charlie, as we've seen, someone like, nope, everything has to be perfect. Everything has to go like this. I've planned the whole day out. But what if we just stop? And what if we don't do that? And like that kind of planting the seed there, this is the seed starting to grow by the end of the episode. So I think that's a really important quote, and I really, really like that. What else did I have? There was something by, as well, when Nick says to Isaac about being what is it, like you've got all your friends around you or something? I had it written down.
Well, I don't think he's totally alone. He's got loads of friends.
That's it. Yeah, that line. Yeah, I
love that.
I love that just because it's like Nick's character, man. Like I know, like I'm going to talk about Charlie a lot in this season because it is very, there's a lot of drama and depth with Charlie's character, which is very important to explore. But Nick, what a journey he goes on from like, being so unsure of how to be in a relationship, right? Like at the start with like to focus on his feelings of how to be in a relationship with a boy, like, to then become caretaker, to then to have emotional intelligence, to like, not even just in his relationship, but with his friendships as well, and how they can mean so much more to him. And just to like, to be able to clock, this is what this person needs to hear right now, and this is what I'm going to tell them. And Nick's really good at that. So that line is like such a character moment for him, and that's why I really like it. But I think overall, probably the break the rules line, just because I think that's I agree with you. I wish we had a little bit more from the teacher there afterwards, but it's that planting that seed that makes Charlie think, actually. And then the seed of that is paid off at the end when he's like, no, we're breaking my rule now. I'm actually going to talk to my parents. And it works really well.
You're right. Nick is really good at that because we see him do it with Tara multiple times throughout the series.
Yes.
We also see it with Elle and with Tao.
Yeah, actually.
And in Paris, both of them. So it's something that he like naturally excels at, I think. So for me, I chose a fun one because I was like, the next probably 2 or 3 episodes, I'm going to probably have like a fairly serious, like, this is a very important quote. So I was like, let me do one fun one before we go. So I chose, this isn't Mr. Ajayi's hippie class. You're representing Mr. Farouk right now.
Fair. Totally fair.
So good. I love it. I love when Mr. Farouk pops off. I love it. Where did you fall on the scale?
So it's like out of 5, lol. But like, so the first episode, I think I said 25. The second episode, I think I said 50 or something. It's going to keep going up for me. I'm sorry. Like, I can't wait for episode 4 when it's like in the millions.
That's okay. I love it.
Yeah. So mine now, I mean, oh gosh, this is for me is like 175. Like,
I love it.
I am like really going up now because it's just to feel that sense of pride. Just when I watch like how much Nick has grown, as a character, how Darcy is like every episode is just discovering more and learning more about herself and what she, how she views herself, what feels right and what doesn't feel right, and like even Tao, like kind of coming around and realizing like, oh my God, actually, I need to pull myself out of this. And like, I need to be a better friend. And then Isaac feeling proud to be able to say to the rest of the gang, oh my God, like I'm able to talk about this because I understand my friends better, so that sense of pride is just everything. And that's why it's pushed my rating up so highly. But the driving force of that is Nick. I think to watch Nick go from, and it's so interesting going from being team captain, right, of like the rugby team, but that isn't as important as understanding and almost being like the captain of understanding your friends and what they need at that point. And being the captain of emotional intelligence means so much more than being the captain of a rugby team, like he is leading that team, but he's supporting his friends. And that's very different,
Yeah, 100%. Mine's still lower than yours, but that's great. I love when the ratings are like completely different from each other. So I gave it a 2.5.
Oh, okay.
Because of the teachers in the car, the no kiss, hug first scene, the jumpers, and the picture book, everything in that scene until the sad stuff starts. All of the Isaac development, like I'm so proud of him there. I'm so proud of just like how far he's come, even just since season 2. In understanding himself and accepting himself. And then that scene at the beginning with Tara and Darcy and the uniform change, like chef's kiss. So good. So I still gave it a 2.5. However, the looming depression of the episode it keeps me below the 5 for sure. It fair. Like pulls me back down. So, but yeah, I really thought that there was going to be some like much lower scores. I surprised myself in 2 and 3 with the score that I've given it. So
yeah, and who knows? Like I might go lower. I probably will at some point.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, it's weird to say that. Like, you know, the depressing stuff obviously hits hard, but I guess for me, I just lean into the fact that I love a character moment, and I love like when a character goes through something and processes something and comes out the other side. And I'm not saying Charlie's fully cured, but I'm just saying like, you know, to really feel the weight of something and then see how 100%. That develops them, you know, like that for me is the juicy stuff. That's the character stuff that I love, you know?
I eat that stuff up too, but I try to be very diplomatic with my skill.
All right, so that wraps us up for today, Ash, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with season 3, episode 4, Journey. I am so ready for that one.
Yes. If you want to follow us online, we are at Why Are We Cast on all platforms. And if you liked this, please consider rating and reviewing us, as it will help others find us. Until next time, bye.
Bye.